What day is it?
Today's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Hey, sorry I woke you up.
Time to get up.
It's time to get up.
You know I do not get up at times.
You're the reason people wake up in the morning.
Don't kiss me. Morning breath.
What time do you have?
Oh, time for work.
Ready to start the day.
Everyone have a good show.
It's showtime.
Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. Hope you had a long holiday weekend. Hope you enjoyed it. It's kind of an odd sports weekend because we're a little light on the NBA and the NHL. I think the NHL has something with this tournament replacing the Four Nations, replacing the All-Star weekend. We didn't cover it here because we didn't have an NHL team at the time, so we didn't spend a lot of time on it. But the truth is the NHL All-Star game really fell apart faster than the NBA All-Star game. The difference is the NHL's come up with something and the NBA hasn't. The NHL occasionally, sporadically, not every Olympics, but for multiple Olympics, has used the All-Star break to send guys off to the Olympics. Now they're using it for the Four Nations tournament. The All-Star games have been, ridiculous, like the NBA, no defense. So I think what they've done with this tournament is good. They've got the Olympics coming up. That should be good. The NBA All-Star game, they messed with it, but it's still a mess. So what that does is it brings college basketball front and center. I think we had a really interesting weekend here. BYU beating Kansas State. They've got Kansas tonight, huge game. The Utes sweeping Kansas and Kansas State at home, putting a little air into their fading NCAA tournament hopes. This isn't enough, but it's a heck of a start, and there's still a few games here to play, a half dozen or so. You got the conference tournament, so it's really not clear exactly how many games you have, but you got a chance. You got a chance to put some good wins on the resume, and the Utes got 2 games they had to have. So we'll get to that coming up. We'll get to the Cougars coming up. The Mountain West basketball, the Aggies, who are in first place and then battling for first place tied with New Mexico, get beat at the pit. Close game, better game than the game in Logan where they collapsed in the last 15 minutes and lost, but they still lost. So the Lobos sweep 2. Now, I know it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. Well, it's not if you're better. If you're a lot better, you can do it. But if it's one of those series where if you play 10 times, it's going to go 5-5, 6-4. Yeah, then it is hard to beat a team 3 times because you're pretty even, and the free throws go, the whistles go for you or against you. Certainly in the pit, as you would expect on the road, the Lobos shot more free throws. They ended up more than doubling the Aggies up, 34 attempts to 16, and outscored them by 14 points at the line. Now 4 of those in the final minute, you can say, well, it's because you were behind. Okay, well, that doesn't explain the rest of the difference. But it's the way things go on the road in college basketball. So the Aggies may get a third shot at them, and it's not guaranteed. They might get it in the semis. That's the other thing. Utah State now is just 1 game in front of Colorado State, 1 game in front of San Diego State in the loss column, and they got to play those teams coming up. So big games coming for the Aggies. They could still end up being the 1 seed. Seems unlikely, but it could happen. They could also fall to the 4 seed. So there's a lot in play here for Utah State. Let's get now to the coach and find out what Jerrod Calhoun thought after the loss in the pit to the Lobos, a hard-fought, close game that goes New Mexico's way. Here's the Aggie coach.
Joining us now, Coach Calhoun, for his post-game conversation. And, Coach, there's a lot of things you look on the stat sheet that your team did well, a lot of things you struggled with, but the free throw shooting discrepancy was just monstrous in this game.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know what to say.
I don't mean to lead you off with something that could get you into trouble.
Change the page. They shot 30, we shot 13. So we obviously got to be more physical, I guess.
I thought, speaking of physicality, I thought Washington did a good job. I raised a little look on the offensive side, but defensive, he did a good job against your point guards.
Yeah, they do what they do. This is how they play. They play great in the last 10 minutes of the game, and they made a few more plays than us. All of our big guys were fouled out. We had 4 guys trying to rotate the best we could, but you got to play more physical, obviously, to get the calls.
People are going to talk about the foul shooting discrepancy, but you make the point that it's not just about the foul shots, it's about the fouls and the fact that you didn't have Templin or Gotterazzi nearly the final 10 minutes of the first half. Gotterazzi fouls out with 6 minutes left. What you have to do to juggle your lineup is just remarkable, the fact you're able to stay in this game.
Yeah, it really hurts, how we draw up things, how we run offense. Just totally out of rhythm the whole game. But credit to New Mexico.
When you look at Falsley, who only had 4, a season low in that game against Logan, I thought he responded well in this game.
Yeah, he's a gamer. I mean, there was no doubt about it in my mind when I put my head on the pillow last night that he was going to step up and have a big game, and he did. He carried us, and then Ian finally got going a little bit there too. So give those two guys a lot of credit. But at the end of the day, you can't go on the road and give up 82, and they shoot 30 free throws, we shoot 13. There's a lot to look at. I think, Scotty, you got to watch the tape. I just watched the Carson Templin foul. That was not a foul on the clear out. So you're already watching them and dissecting some things that hopefully we can clean up.
Kind of feels like you two are destined for Vegas. I know you got a lot of work to do, but I know you guys and your players in that locker room want another crack at these guys.
Yeah, I mean, the chances of that happen aren't very good, to be honest with you. Tournament time, there's so many upsets and so many things. But, yeah, if we do, we do. And, at the end of the day, they're 2-0 against us. So they're the better team right now. I thought we had this one. I thought our first half offense was absolutely awesome. But, the foul, it just was no rhythm to the game. Very, very chaotic, I thought, with a lot of those calls. 5
games left on the season. Obviously, some big ones still left and some really good opponents left. What's your message to your guys after this one?
You got to win probably 3 to get in. So it's time to get back to work. Can't hang our heads. It is what it is, and you got to go win basketball games. This time of year, you got to win games. You can't let one loss affect you for Wednesday or Saturday. We know those two teams are really good, and you can't expect anything, right, anymore in college basketball. With the turnover and the turmoil, it's just too crazy. Teams get hot. Teams play well. We want to put ourselves in a position. I'm proud of our guys tonight for, hostile environment and all that kind of stuff and overcoming the fouls. But at the end of the day, it's a loss. So we got to get back to work and, get out of New Mexico.
Well, I was going to say before I let you go, I mean, when they put the clamps down on in Logan, it was like a 43-15 run in the final 15 minutes. Here, they go on that run, but you still hang in there. I got to imagine there's some lessons you can draw from that for these guys.
Yeah, unfortunately, this time of year, Scotty, it's either you win or you lose. Yeah. You know what I mean? So there's no more lessons at this point in the season. You got to get dubs.
All right, there's a few minutes with Utah State. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will talk Utah and BYU basketball. Stay with us, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. All right, college hoops front and center with the NBA and the NHL pausing for breaks. The NBA All-Star break, the NHL, the Four Nations Tournament. Thursday night title game will be U.S. and Canada. U.S. won in group play, the round-robin play. Now they'll play them again for the title. I don't know, the gold medal game? Rolls off the tongue. College basketball front and center. Big 12 basketball this weekend. BYU at home beat Kansas State. They play Kansas tonight. Let's hear the coach after the win over K-State.
Before we talk about the game, I want to acknowledge the Schoaf family. I think everyone's aware of the tragedy that happened with Jake Schoaf, and so I think he had close to 50 family members at the game tonight, and was really wanting to get the win for their family as he kind of got honored tonight, and had a bunch of them in the locker room after the game, which was pretty neat. So, prayers to their family, and just glad that we could do just a small little part to hopefully honor him and show them a little bit of support during this time. Now, that being said, as far as the game goes, I thought, we set the tone really well with our defensive execution coming out, to start the first half. We did some really good things against a team that can be challenging to guard given their different pick and roll combinations. And then in the second half, I thought Dallin really, put us on his shoulders, had, I think, 14 points in the second half. And then a couple other things I wanted to mention was just the kind of the three-headed monster at the 5. I thought all 3 of our 5 men played really well in their respective roles. And then Richie's, I think someone told me that was his first double-double, which actually surprises me, but just I think that last offensive rebound that he got kind of encompasses what he's about. Just his will is just uncommon, so shout out to him for that. So with that, I'll open it up.
What are your 5s? Kate had 5 blocks, and felt like he was really dominating and painting the area, especially in that first half.
Yeah.
Why do you think he just came out kind of with his hair on fire tonight?
It was fun. Apparently, he told someone that was his flu game because he hasn't been feeling well. So, but no, he did a great job, I think, in just imposing his will. We felt like the last team, which was Baylor, that we played, that switched a lot. We didn't do enough to punish their smalls switching onto our bigs. So we put a decent amount of time working on that, and I think you saw a lot of those over-the-top passes to him, which he was able to catch, gather, and finish. But his ability and tenacity, similar to Richie, to go after rebounds, I thought was big. And then the thing I like about our whole team is, and then in the second half, I go with Mahilo because they were doing a different scheme, and he's over there cheering Mahilo on. And so really, that's not normal. You gotta. Guys want to. We all want to win, but sometimes it's hard to have joy for somebody else. So shout out to him for that as well.
Kev, did you think this late in the season you'd have an 11-man rotation?
No, I did not. No, I mean, and having depth is a blessing and a curse. And I've told this to several of our players. Even this morning, I met with one of our guys and told him that, hey, look, man, it'd make my job a lot easier if I was playing 8 guys like a lot of teams do. But, we had 41 bench points. We got guys. I have a lot of guys. We have a lot of guys that can start. And so it does make my job harder and I thought that's where the game got a little funky in the second half. I couldn't find the right combination of guys, and then ultimately we end up doing that. But, I think it shows the maturity of our group to be able to, allow us to do that. And some games it's necessary, some games it's not.
What was the scout coming in on Coleman Hawkins, and how do you feel like your team performed defending Hawkins?
Yeah, I think it's 2 games in a row where we did a good job on game plan execution. The different type of players, obviously, but Javon Small required a lot of time, energy, and effort. Shout out to our coaching staff for putting together some really intelligent game plans and then our guys' ability to execute them. So with Hawkins, he's very skilled, and I thought our switching negated some of his picking and popping. We were doing some things to send him certain directions in the post. Or on the perimeter, I should say. And then, Dallin is a brick wall. You saw that on that first post-up he had. Dallin just stood him up. So I thought our physicality was good with him, and overall just attention to detail was good on him.
Which statistic maybe impresses you the most? You out-rebound by 10, good assist to field goal ratio. What kind of jumps out to you?
On a night, I think probably the fact that we had 40% of our shots were at the rim. We had 40 paint points, and that was a massive point of emphasis coming into the game. They give up the most rim shots in the Big 12, so we knew we wanted to get downhill. I think Yegor did a good job of passing up on some threes to either get himself downhill or get some paint to grade, as we call it. He had 8 assists, 2 turnovers, but I think just overall, just the that's hard to go 17 to 21 at the rim. That's hard to do, and so very good execution.
You mentioned the 3 centers and 11-man rotation. How impressed are you with your players to kind of adapt through all these different rotations that you've been throwing at them?
Very impressed. Like I said, I think it speaks to their maturity. And guys stay ready. Even Dallin, to be able to, sometimes I get him in early, sometimes I get him in a little bit later. He comes in and really, like I said, stabilized the game. I thought when he came in the second half. But again, I understand, I've been around long enough and coached enough teams to know that that's not normal to have a team that's just committed to winning whatever it takes. And I'm proud of our guys for being mature about it.
Any more questions?
I just want to ask about how valuable it is to have a Richie Saunders on your team, a guy that is willing to, literally put his body on the line. He was falling all over the place. Just take me through what that kind of brings to your team.
When you see a guy playing as hard as he does, it's hard not to, match that energy, and he's, he's been here, Dallin's been next to him doing the same thing. So is Trevin. Those guys stick their nose in there. But, he's just a guy that leads by example in terms of his motor. Every coach, and my favorite thing to say about Richie, I've said it 1,000 times, but most guys that play like Richie can't shoot. No, but seriously, I mean, I saw it in the NBA all the time. It was like, oh, this guy's a really good defender and he hustles. Okay, but you can't play him and when it matters because he can't make shots because they don't guard him. Richie's incredibly efficient offensive player and has that level of motor, which is a rare combination. So we're lucky to have him.
Trey Stewart's been getting a little bit more run these past couple of games. What's led to that? And what kind of impact has he had?
Yeah, I mean, Trey's a Big 12 athlete. He's a Big 12 level defender as well, and so. We've played some more dynamic guards. We feel like he's been able to come in and negate a little bit. Him and Mawut being able to sort of tag team guys, and quite frankly, he's earned it. He's had unbelievable practices, and there were times where I had to bring him in and I would tell him, hey man, life's not fair. You're playing extremely well. You're not in the rotation. And that may not change. And I learned that a long time ago, just trying to be honest with the players. And they may not like hearing what I have to say, but I just want them to know, like, I respect him enough to tell him what it is. And, he's a guy that's just stayed ready. And, I think the way he goes about his business, has a lot to do with the character of the rest of the team.
All right, there's BYU basketball coach Kevin Young. After BYU beats K-State, they will play Kansas tonight at the Marriott Center. Big game there. Both teams 17-8. Both teams can pick up a nice win for their NCAA tournament resume. Right now, it looks like I think both these teams are in, so it's all about seeding, but, there's still games to go, so a little bit of pressure to get the win. For the Utes, huge win. First, they get Kansas on the weekend. Then they beat Kansas State last night. Here's Craig Smith after the game.
That's a great win for us. They are a very, very, very – Kansas State is a very, very, very talented team. You got a lot of weapons all over the floor, and you really saw that last 3.5 minutes of the game. I mean, they were just throwing them in from everywhere. And but I'm really, really proud of our guys. Obviously, it was a great week. Well, it's not a week. I don't know if it's a weekend or not. But the Saturday and the Monday sweep, to be able to get both those games was huge for us. So we had a great look. I thought early in the game, I think we were down 7-2. We were ready to play, no doubt. I mean, I think I don't know. I don't think I said this to you, but when we beat Kansas, sometimes when you beat a top 20 team, and when you have some guys that maybe aren't used to doing that, you never know how they're going to be. And there was no the water splash things and they just was like, all right, we took care of business. It's on to the next. And that was the mentality after the game. And when we came in yesterday for shoot around and film on a quick one-day prep, and like I told you guys, it's these guys they're a tough prep because of their versatility and what they have. Our guys are really, really locked in on film, on walkthrough, and some of the stuff we did offensively for our prep. So we had a great mindset to us. I thought shoot-around was outstanding today as well. Thought we had a little sluggish start. And maybe that's, it's the first time we played Saturday and Monday, right, where you only have the one day in between. I just thought we had a couple guys that played a lot of minutes the other night, maybe where their feet weren't their legs maybe weren't quite where they need to be, but that's a mental thing. In my eyes, that's a mental thing, and we made sure they knew it, and I thought they self-corrected quickly from that. So many great things from tonight, so many good individual performances, but I think at the end of the day, you could feel, at least I could, maybe not a lot of people can't see it when you lose 2 on the road, but I could definitely – there was something about the West Virginia and Cincinnati game that I felt like, man, we're right there. We're right there. And I think we showed that this weekend. Now, we got a ways to go still, but this weekend we found ways to win. Down the stretch of this game, I think we scored 7 of our last 8 possessions. And, you look back at what they did. Coleman Hawkins nails about a 24, 25-footer. That's not – I just looked at it. It's not an exaggeration. And Hausen is in the middle of the U, and he sticks it, right? And it's just and he almost made another one. But we were able to execute late. Obviously, Miro had a heck of a play there at the rim where we call it a hostage dribble, kind of roasts the guy and gets that finish. We call a play for Gabe, and he stuck that 3 to go up by 5. And then at the end of the day, we found a different way to win. We go 3 for 19 from the 3, but we get 21 offensive, 51 rebounds, 21 on the offensive end, which was 53% of our missed shots. Lost in 6 offensive boards, Ezra 5, KD with 3. That was obviously huge for us, but I thought we showed a lot of resolve tonight and found a way to win.
Coach, to get this win coming off of the Kansas win, to double up, how rewarding is that for you as a coach to, capitalize on these two big opportunities?
Yeah, it's, I don't even know. So 26 game, today's game 26. We've certainly had some up and down, but it's just consistency for us. It's incredibly rewarding for our guys because the things that we emphasize and the things that we really try to do to win. And so guys learn how to win, right? And it's easy. Some guys are, you got to learn how to win. And it's toughness and discipline, but playing for one another. And I don't think we have many selfish guys. It's just how every play matters. You can't take possessions off at this level. You just can't do it. And I don't care if it's like a my turn shot, like a bad shot. I mean, we had our shot selection's been really, really good, especially this weekend. It's been great for Gabe to see the ball go in the hole. That changes us. It makes a difference, right? I mean, he's our alpha, so to speak, right? But then you can see the progression of some of these guys. And so when you are what you emphasize, I've always believed that as a coach, as a father, you are what you emphasize. And the emphasis now is showing through. I mean, Ezra made some plays tonight. He's starting to make those plays more consistently, right? KD, some of those offensive boards, our ability to sit in stance and guard somebody and understand team defense. And we had some breakdowns tonight that gave Housen a couple of easy ones. It gave McDaniel an easy one early in the game. There's no such thing as a perfect, but I think they're seeing, if we do this, it translates to team success, right? And so some guys are figuring it out, and it means a lot because you got to take care of business at home. It's the bottom line. But when you win 2 games in a row in this league, or you win 3 games in a row, or things can change quickly, right? And the same thing when it goes the other way. So I thought our guys showed tremendous, what's the right word? Togetherness. We used a word this week called toughness. And it's a play on words, but it's toughness, like toughness and togetherness. And you got to put it together. And I thought we did, we took some of that to heart. And those guys showed a lot of leadership internally, to have the right mindset to come out here and take care of business. And I just thought that shows the maturity that we are getting or developing. And so it's a huge step in the right direction.
Craig, even when you're having a night where shots aren't dropping as much as they usually would, especially from 3, what did it mean just to do so well on the offensive glass? I mean, you guys had a big one against Kansas, but 21 tonight, give yourself a lot of second chances.
There's so many ways to win in basketball. I saw Rick, and I quoted him before as well, but Rick Pitino, I can't remember his numbers, but he said something like, we consistently shoot 38% from the field. We consistently shoot 58% from the free throw line. I think those are the numbers he said. I don't know if you guys saw it. But we just find ways to win through different ways, getting more opportunities, taking care of the ball, getting to the glass. So many ways to win. In any sport, there's different ways to win. And good teams find different ways to win, if that makes sense. And so that's to go 3 for 19. Now, there was a stretch in the season where we were kind of used to going 3 for 19. I hate to say it, but there's some truth in that. So we've been down that road, in the past. We've been inconsistent. We've been a pretty good offensive rebounding team here for quite some time. We haven't always been a great defensive rebounding team. Thought we took a big step in that direction this weekend. So you just got to be able to find different ways to win, and then everybody's got to be ready to go. I thought Miro had his best game, maybe his best game as a Ute. So for him to have a readiness to go when things aren't always right, that says something. It says something. Even a simple play where Mason hardly plays. Well, he didn't really. He played about, 30 seconds? But on the press break, where Gabe just kind of lobbed it up there to Jake, and everybody was going, oh, boy, right? And then Jake had the awareness to look up the floor. We always tell it when teams press, you got to look up the floor. They're strong on the front end, weak on the back end. Look up the floor. So then Jake has the poise to look up the floor to Mason. Well, then the kid kind of is closing the and Mike's streaking down the weak side. Mason, sneaky good play. Pass fakes. Kid jumps. When he lands, boom, throws it right to Mike. We get the dunk. If he would have just threw it, it's probably a turnover going back the other way. So, like, a readiness when you haven't played for 39 minutes and 15 seconds, and to be able to make that play, there's a lot of plays that, guys got to be able to make under duress because it all matters. So it's very, very rewarding, and it's a great group, man. We got to keep having consistency, but it's a heck of a group, and I'm just so happy for them.
We've talked a lot about free throws when they haven't been good, so it's only fair to talk when they have been.
Yeah.
But especially with Ezra and Lawson, what did you see from them that just kind of really changed the tone of the game?
Well, that was big for us. To get to the line 30 times, and we were going at the rim. I felt we maybe had a couple games there where our guys weren't attacking as much because it's almost like they didn't want to get fouled. You can't have that. You just cannot have that mindset. And so even if you look at it, I've said this to you guys before, but if you have a point of possession, obviously you want to be better than 50% from the line. But if you still get a point of possession, it's a pretty good, that's pretty solid. So it was great for them to see the ball go in the hole. Ezra, I think I said this to you, I don't know when, but you can really see Ezra's made a couple tweaks to his free, and it shows, I'm telling you. And obviously today goes 7 for 7. You could see it happening. It was just a matter of when. Kind of like I said a while ago with Gabe, you could see he was going to start to. And then with Lawson just puts Lawson's going to allow himself to have some grace. He's such a perfectionist. He just wants to be. He's such a team guy. He's such a high achieving guy, and so he just take a deep breath. And I think he was able to kind of correct some things. Honestly, yesterday I thought it really helped him. And then he saw it go in, and no matter how they go in, they went. He swished a few of those, and obviously he had a couple off the glass. I think he called it, and but then it gives you confidence, right? Confidence is an amazing thing in life. It's an amazing thing in sports. It's an amazing thing no matter what you do, and then it gives you some confidence. Ezra makes those 2 off the flagrant 2 or whatever it was, flagrant 1. Those were monster free throws. The and one he got. Right, Gabe missed that shot, kind of a point blank at the rim, and man, I don't know how Ezra came up with that ball, but he got it and got the end one, and those are big plays in a tight game like this.
Coach, you talk about readiness. Coming out of the timeout with 2 minutes to go, it had been majority Miro and Mike at point, and you opted to go with Hunter.
Yeah.
So was wondering what went into that choice, and why was Hunter the best option?
Yeah, good observation. Hunter's a really good defensive player. He's probably our best defensive guard. He's very, very good at warring and getting through pick and roll. He's really good at chasing out screens. So he's a guy you can put on. The McDaniel kid is, he is so quick. Like that guy. He is so quick and shifty. And then when he sees the 3 go in, he can be a nightmare to guard. And of course, he makes his first 3 because we overhelp and he sticks it. But he's also a guy that's really good at guarding a dead 3. Like Housen's coming into this game, 86% of his shots from the 3. So like he can guard that kind of guy. So it gives you a lot of versatility as to what's going on. And he's played enough point guard in his career, where we felt comfortable with it to be able to do that. So, the turnover on the press, that wasn't ideal. And like we told our guy, and I was yelling timeout, but the refs obviously didn't hear me. But you have to have the poise to be able to do that. But the mindset with that is he knows exactly what we're trying to do. He's our best defensive guard. When Miro made that shot, we went up 2. And I'm trying to think if he was in. I think I took Miro out right after that. And then we ran the play for Gabe. And so then it's just you got to get stops. You know what I mean? You got to be able to get stops. And fortunately for us, we got just enough.
Coach, Kansas and Kansas State have 2 of the biggest NIL budgets in the conference in the country, really. Is there any, I don't want to say extra reward in terms of knocking off those types of teams? I know Utah football climbing the ranks in the Pac-12 and the talented teams against USC, and that it was always a big deal. For you, is that sort of similar, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, since you brought it up, they do have a lot of resources. And so we don't talk about it, any of that stuff as a team. It's a small world, right? And these guys all know. I mean, I'm not saying they have a personal relationship, all these guys, but guys have a pretty good feel of what goes on out there, and they do. So I don't know if that, and obviously some guys, it's very well known, right? Who's getting what around the country, whether it's the two teams we just played or teams out of our league or what have you. So we don't ever talk about it as a coaching staff or with our team. I do have a feeling they had a pretty good idea with that. And so, whatever it takes to motivate them, I guess, from their perspective. But I just have always believed in you got to do what you got to do to motivate guys. Hopefully you have guys that are very intrinsically motivated, but certainly there's always outside influences, that take place. And at the end of the day, that's college athletics right now. And, and I'm not trying to say we're one way or the other, but there's the Dodgers, there's the Athletics, there's just a lot of in different leagues, and in the Big 12, it's big boy basketball, and there's a lot of resources out there. So I'm just proud of our guys, how we keep showing up, keep showing resilience, keep fighting the good fight, and it's also nice when you get the reward at the end of the day.
You guys have, all season, the three-point shooting's kind of been up and down by game. Same with the free throw shooting. And tonight, the three-point shooting kind of dips. Do you feel like you can kind of put all the facets of the game together in the same night? And if that's going to be necessary for you guys to get some big wins against some good teams going up?
Well, consistency matters. We obviously, every team has some holes. No matter who you play, there's holes, right? A lot of times elite defensive teams struggle a little bit to score. Sometimes really good offensive teams don't guard as well. We're big on guarding personnel, so you got to try to make guys beat you at what they're not good at. We weren't awesome at that tonight, but we weren't terrible either. In fact, we were better the other night that way. But you got to be able to find different ways to win. It's nice when, who says it? It's nice when I love it when a plan comes together. What is that? John, is that a movie? I love it when a plan comes together. Maybe that was the A-Team. You ever watch the A-Team? Was it the A-Team? Yeah, Hannibal. I love it when a plan comes together. You need to look that up. So do you. Oh, yeah. See, there you go. You guys can learn from me when I'm in a good mood. So, yeah, like Hannibal said, I love it when a plan comes together. But listen, the best teams are the most complete teams. You play offense and defense. You used to have an AD that used to say, hey, do both. Well, we can do this, we can do both. You got to be able to figure it out. And so, but at the same time, it's very rare that it all comes together, and you got to be able to find different ways to win. And that's why you have some depth on your roster. Different players bring different things to the table. And there's always the game within the game. How can we hurt them? How are we, we're not making any shots. Our legs look, we got to pound it inside more. We got to get to the foul line. Where are they weak? What's their mismatches? So, of course, every team wants to make as many threes as you can and get to the foul line and make your free throws and make your layups and don't let them score. But it's an imperfect game, and you got to do your best to make it as perfect as you can, and that's easy to say. It's hard to do.
There's Utah basketball coach Craig Smith after winning a couple of big games at the Huntsman Center this week, beating Kansas over the holiday weekend, beating Kansas and Kansas State. We are going to take a break. When we come back, Pablo Mastroeni looking ahead to the season opener with PK. Stay with us.
Joining us now, DJ's off. It is my good buddy Pablo Mastroeni. The season is about to get underway. Head coach of RSL. Good morning, Pablo.
Good morning, PK. How you doing, bud?
I am doing well here. Ready for another season is upon us. And oh my gosh, I could not keep up. RSL during this offseason made more moves than Pablo Mastroeni as a senior at a Thunderbird High dance after a football game.
That's pretty accurate. I didn't make any moves. So this is big stuff.
Trying to keep up with them. Last night, obviously, I know you're coming on, so I thought, oh man, I know them, but I don't know them by heart, so I got to write them down, and I got to take a whole legal pad here. to list all the guys coming and going, right? It's a very active time.
Yeah.
And you, in our conversations, have come to know that you're very big on team building and all that type of stuff. And, you know, any sports team or any organization really is like a big puzzle. The pieces got to fit together, and it's up to leadership to make sure that those pieces fit together. With that in mind, I don't know if it's a challenge, a struggle, an anticipation, or how do you view your job this year? Because it seems like, at least right now, it might be a little more complex than it has been in recent seasons.
Yeah, you know, I've been thinking a lot about it, and the truth is that every year is going to be different, and every year is going to pose its challenges. Even if you bring the majority of the group back, and you have one player, and depending on that player and his influence in the locker room, his influence on the field, it's going to affect the team. And, you know, we have, you know, from the start of last year, really we have three big guys in Andres Gomez, Matt Crooks, and Chicho, who are no longer with the club, and for all different reasons. And for the way I look at it, PK, is that it's always going to be a challenge, right? And, you know, Trey sent me this wonderful article on relentless optimism. And it's something I didn't know that I try to employ this, but it's really the only way to be as a coach, because there's so many variables that get thrown at you with injuries, with suspensions, with trades and new players, and, you know, all these different things that get thrown at you. And you've got to be able to steady the ship, keep your head on, and make the best decisions for the group and navigate it accordingly. And so, you know, we've had this new group in for about 5 weeks now, and it's been the most professional preseason as far as everyone being all in. And so, you know, when you don't have the big name guys, there's a void, and it's really interesting to see which players from last year step into that void. It's interesting to see the new players that step into that void. But what's kind of happened is I feel like we're a much tighter team than we were last year. And so obviously we'll find out more when the bullets start flying. But I've been really pleased with preseason at this point. And like every you know, preseason at this point, is that you have a lot of things to work on, a lot of things to improve on. But the collective mindset, mentality, and care for each other is definitely off the charts.
It's interesting in that we're seeing this a little bit with college, particularly in college basketball these days. You know, the transfer portal, guys come and go, that literally thousands of them. And so these teams are brought together and they get off to maybe slow starts because it takes a while for the coaching staff to figure out rotations and everything. And you're at the professional level, and so you got the CONCACAF thing, you're taking off to go down to Costa Rica, I think it is. And then 2-3 days later, you come back, you go to San Jose to play them in the first MLS opener. Now, it may need some time, but at the same time, those games count in the standings just as much as they would in the fall. And when we get to that point and you've got so many 30 games under your belt, how do you get everybody being able to play at a higher level that they need to be playing at right at the start, because everything matters in what you're doing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and that's something that we as a front office and staff got together and really, you know, went into the weeds with how we wanted to prepare for this preseason. Typically, we have 6 weeks of preseason, and then we have our first MLS game. Here, we have 5 weeks of preseason, and now we're in the Champions Cup, CONCACAF, and heading down to San Jose. So we had to actually ramp up our physical output, and typically that's a little bit dangerous because you got to do a little bit more, and the bodies are at risk, and then you don't, you know, what we've seen is when you ramp it up really early in the preseason, like we're doing, it might have some effects later on in the season just because of the load that the guys are enduring, you know, day to day in the preseason to get us prepared to be as competitive as we can be in this CONCACAF tournament. And it's a tournament that we want to put our best foot forward, and it's navigating as a club and myself and the staff, how we go about putting the freshest, most competitive team on the field for both tournaments. And obviously that's something that we haven't done. I haven't done as a coach. So again, this relentless optimism where we spend a lot of times really getting in the weeds of the way we want to play and the mindset needed to play the way we want to play. And like I said earlier, at this point, I'm just thrilled with the team's ability to take all the information on, take all the physical work on, and put their best foot forward. I'm really excited about this trip. We leave Monday for a game in Costa Rica, and then we go straight from Costa Rica to San Jose. And so there will probably be quite a few changes from game to game, and that's the way we've been preparing the group, where we've had two different teams. Obviously, we won't make 11 changes, but there's a good chance we can see up to 5-6 changes from the team in Costa Rica to San Jose.
Pablo Mastroeni, the guy calling shots for RSL, joining us as the season gets underway. Now, Chicho's gone, and he had really good at the start, petered out a little bit there. At least for now, because there could be some reinforcements and most likely will be coming along at some point, particularly in the transfer market. As far as offensively, is it going to be the Diego show and Diago show? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, both those players will be really, really important. Diego Luna's coming off, his best season in MLS, won the Young Player of the Year, and continues to show huge strides in his own personal development along with his leadership for our group. So he will definitely be somebody that we're going to lean on. Diego's another player that we're expecting big things from this year. Didn't have a preseason with the team last year, came in with 9 or 10 games left, and it was a difficult adjustment given the time of the season and where we were and how every point mattered. It was very difficult to find different rotations at that point. But with a full preseason now, Diego's going to be joining the group in San Jose. He suffered a broken nose when he was in training camp with the U.S. team, but has been working alongside the group and keeping fit. But will join us in San Jose. So both these players are going to be really important. But the young prospects that we have as forwards in Ari Pule and Forster Ajaga, two guys that are 21, and 22, I think, and they've been the prototypical striker that we've been looking for. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of MLS experience. Forster came from Nashville where he played a few games, and Ari came from the Australian Professional League. But it's interesting because every big time player at some point was a young player that no one knew about. And again, this is where I'm going, and I see these actions in training. I see these actions in the preseason game. Both these guys scored goals in their last preseason game. So I'm excited for fans to get to know these players and soon to be wearing their jerseys into the stadium because they're killing it. And they're wonderful people, they're wonderful teammates, and they're very good players that just need an opportunity.
What are you looking at as far as goalkeeper Gavin Beaver's gone? I saw that you drafted a couple of guys there. Just give us an insight as far as what's that going to happen.
Yeah, so, we picked up Rafa Cabral, who'd been playing in Brazil, very experienced goalkeeper, has some games with the Brazilian national team, and he's been a great addition to the group, very professional, has some great leadership qualities. And also we picked up another goalkeeper from Orlando. His name's Mason, and has, had a very bad leg break last year. Has just come to full fitness and played in a couple of games in preseason, and both of them look really, really sharp. They're dialed in. They command their box. They're a big presence in goal, and so it's been a great preseason from my perspective to see how they work with the guys in front of them. And then we drafted two goalkeepers in Trace and Max. And, I think that they're both very talented goalkeepers as well. So we have a completely new look goalkeeper crew And like I said, they've been doing a great job, and really look forward to seeing how they integrate in with the team, how they start to express themselves on the field, and ultimately make the big save in order to win games.
You talked about it being exciting to have fans make the connections with players, and I think that at any level, that's really important. That's been taking a hit. I've heard people complaining about the college level with these kids coming and going now, and you don't know who your guys are, and you want to know who your guys are. And for years, particularly with Armando and Beckelman, I mean, everybody knew who those guys were. My daughter, today's her birthday, she's turning 30, and when she was a kid, awesome. Beckerman was her favorite player. She saw him, I think, some type of signing deal, and talked with him. He talked with her when she was just a child, and so that lit up her life, right? And then she started following him, and I think that's important here. Now, you do have some guys that are returning, but what's your thought as far as having fans being to know the guys? It's sometimes a lot of change. Then it takes time to get to know them, and then if they go. And we hear that across sports at the professional level all the time. It's permeated college a little bit more now. But at the pro level, so they buy their jerseys, and fill in the blank is your guy. Do you get to the point I'm making, the importance of having that connection between player and fan base?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, PK. I think that the closer we are to the fans, the more impactful home games become, right? There's a different level of connection. And, I think what RSL had when Kyle Beckerman and Nick Raimondo were here, and Javi Morales, and you can go on and on about how awesome that group was. And it was the consistency of their appearances. It was what they brought to the community that I think made that team very special. And now I look at our group, and we still have Justin Glad, who's been here for quite some time. We have Emeka Nelly, who last year had a breakout year and is now playing with the U.S. national team. And we have Diego Luna,
Pablo
another
Ruiz
young
coming
player,
back too,
and Pablo Ruiz. And so we have a good group of guys that I think the fans are really starting to be, to get excited about. That will be here hopefully for some time, and then the rest of it, it comes down to winning. Everyone
That's
wants to be a part of a winning program, and I think again, winning helps people recognize faces, helps fill the stadium, and so whilst we want to bring up young players, we also want to win games and make our fans proud and make our community proud, and so. At the moment, it may look like a tough task, but I believe we have the type of characters and the type of club that's committed to making sure that we get this right.
Well, long season. We're excited to get started. Thank you for your time today, Pablo.
Awesome, PK.
All right, talk to you. Okay.
Take care.
DJ and PK. There's Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know. News update. This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag Utah Jazz.
Jasmine and Keontae George helping his Rising Stars team advance to the NBA All-Star Tournament. In Game 1, George led the team with 10 of their 40 points. In Game 2, he hit the game-winning shot to send his team to the next round. George and Team C got the opportunity to play in the NBA All-Star Tournament where they lost to Team Shaq. The Jazz are returning to action Friday at home against Oklahoma City. So much has been made of the All-Star Game format. To have the young guys in the middle of the All-Star Game, got to admit, that seemed weird, PK. I know they wanted a fourth team, but that was odd.
I wouldn't know.
All right, Friday, Oklahoma City Thunder back at it, chasing Tankathon 2025. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NBA.
Here's Curry from half court. Yes! A half-court three for Steph Curry. Lob down low to Tatum. There's the flush. That's the finish. Shaq's OGs in the first ever NBA All-Star mini tournament. The champions of the 74th NBA All-Star Game.
To be honest, I didn't like it at all. I don't like the breaks, how long. I mean, the games were so short, obviously. We could score And so they're trying to extend the game or extend the TV time with breaks and things like that. And as a player, you're trying to stay warm and things like that. So it's kind of tough to do that. We got a 7'5" guy over there coming off the bench for the first time probably in his life, and sitting 20 minutes is not probably easy for them. So it's tough for me. So I can already understand how they feel.
It's not smart basketball no more. I saw a clip not too long ago where Kobe said, yo, it's accidental basketball. He couldn't have been more right. It was so refreshing to play against Bron, because every possession is like a chess match. But you don't just get that on a regular basis. It's just who can run faster, who can hit more threes. It's no substance. And so I think it's very boring.
There's NBA players not liking the NBA All-Star Game, joining the rest of us from a decade ago. Not liking the way things have gone. But if guys aren't going to play hard, then you can put out whatever you want. East versus West was fine when guys were playing hard. But,
yeah, I think Draymond Green was talking about the game overall, not the All-Star Game.
Oh, you think on the entire NBA? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trae Young was talking about the All-Star format, so Draymond on the season. Yeah, well,
talking about the current state of the league.
There it is.
Far more than one All-Star game that LeBron decided years ago, we're not going to play hard because everybody does what I say, and so there it is. That's one game and a night that nobody remembers anymore anyway. I think the bigger issue is Green commenting on the game with the threes and all that, saying it's boring.
NBA returns to action tomorrow night with the Lakers hosting the Hornets. DJ and PK.
#NFL.
It is time to adjust your rosters. Cincinnati Bengals plan to use the franchise tag on wide receiver T. Higgins if they can't agree on an extension by the March 4th tag deadline. Tag would give the two sides until mid-July to agree on a new deal. Otherwise, Higgins will play for 1 year and $26 million. Cincinnati also working on long-term deals for Jamar Chase and defensive end Trey Hendrickson. So, Bengals with an expensive off-season. The problem with the Bengals is the defense, and so the wide receivers are, everybody loves offense, and those guys make a bunch of plays, but it starts with Hendrickson, but they got to get better. They gave up so many points this year, ended up missing the playoffs, and wasting a year of a really prime offense.
Rats.
The Miami Dolphins have released running back Raheem Mostert after 3 seasons. He had a career year in 2023, 21 touchdowns, made a Pro Bowl. His numbers dropped significantly last year due to injury. Cam Ward on teams potentially passing on him due to sitting out the second half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Okay, you're either going to draft me or you're not. If you don't draft me, that's your fault. You got to remember you're the same team that's got to play me for the rest of my career, and I'll remember that.
Okay.
Cam Ward. Going to take it out on you if you pass on him.
So that means he believes he should go number 1, I guess.
He does believe he should go number 1. Baltimore Ravens guard Ben Cleveland was cited for a DUI in Georgia last weekend when he registered a .178 on a breathalyzer test. The 26-year-old has spent the first 4 seasons of his career with Baltimore and is a pending free agent next month. .178, that is probably at least double the legal limit. DJ and PK.
#BYU.
Well, BYU beat Kansas State convincingly Saturday night, won by 15. They've got Kansas tonight. These two teams with identical 17-8 records, PK. A winnable game. Utah, we'll get to that in a second, already with the sweep. BYU can get the sweep. Seems like it's right there for the taking. And that whole goal of that Ken Pomeroy said when he's on from KenPom.com, have a winning record in league, and they will go to the NCAA Tournament. It is within their grasp now, and this is a box that needs to be checked.
Okay. All right, so what you're saying is they got to win.
Got to win, baby. 8-6 in league. This would be win number 9 at home.
If they won after that, it'd be win number 10.
Yeah.
They got 6 more games to go. Don't take anything for granted. Win as many as you possibly can. They're fighting for the NCAA tournament lives. all right, to get in, see what happens at that point if you got in. But, yeah, sure. They're right where they can see the NCAA tournament, but being able to see it and do it is two different things. They're not struggling to get there. They're on the wave to get there, and they've got to continue to win games. I just don't see anything where I can look at, wow, this is a guaranteed W or this is a guaranteed L the rest of the way, which makes it all sorts of entertaining.
They're both 17-8. They're both 8-6. Winner of this game will be all alone in 5th place in the Big 12. Tip-off tonight, 7 o'clock at the Marriott Center. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Utah.
The Utes improved to 15-11 on the year. They are 7-8 in the conference after they sweep the Kansas State homestand. They beat K-State last night 74-69 after beating Kansas on Saturday. That's about as good a weekend as you could have dreamed of, PK. I'm not sure how many of you fans really believed they'd do it, but they pulled it off.
Well, they're decent at home. So, on the road, I don't think they would have done it, but they were on the road. They were at home.
Where they are 14-3.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the numbers, the two numbers that jump out of you outside of the final score is rebounds 51-28 and 21 offensive rebounds. I mean, that's incredible. 21 offensive rebounds. And the thing about that is that's like allowing a team to have 4, 5, 6 outs in baseball. If you do that, they're going to score. And the free throws, but I mean, it's the same thing with Utah State and New Mexico. The home team in college has a distinct advantage there.
Yes, that, but also the fact that they not only got them, but they made them at a decent clip. 76.7% is respectable, and this is a team that's down in the low to mid-60s and is one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. And that's a good night of the line, 23.
Yeah, I don't know what the breakdown is at home versus the road, though. I don't look at raw numbers like you do and draw conclusions from them. I'd have to see what the breakdown is as far as them being at home and what they shoot on the road to see if that's unusual or not.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Utah State.
Martinez guarded by Dent. Slips it to Albury. Albury lays it up and in. Woo, beautiful backdoor cut. Dayton Albury gets the bucket, and the Aggies up 52-46. Aggies looking for somebody to help out. Finally to Martinez. Baseline three by Ian. Yes! Oh, Ian Martinez. Big three from the baseline. We're square at 59 apiece. Here comes the second free throw by Dexter. Left it short. Templin taps it out. Controlled by Utah State. Martinez for three. Yes! Martinez hits it. We're tied. 76 all. Oh, Ian Martinez on the offensive rebound. He buries the three, and the Aggies have tied it up.
Utah State ties it up, but ultimately loses to New Mexico 82-79. The Lobos sweep the 2 regular season games. They're alone in first place. They've just got the 1 conference loss, while the Aggies have 3. And against San Jose State here midweek, PK, but then they will play the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place teams the next 3 games with San Diego State, Boise State, and CSU all on the schedule. Big stretch here. That was a well-played game, a disappointing L in the end, but I think they regret the one they dropped at home more than that one. I mean, you'd rather have either one, obviously, but not a surprise they went down in the pit.
Yeah, it was obviously right down to the end, and the kid for Washington for New Mexico hits the shot, and Falstaff came down, missed his, and made one right after that. But, the 2 big players, and we just heard of Martinez and Falstaff there, they needed some more help. They didn't get a lot of help from the rest of the guys, and that's going to be the key to their success, because those 2 guys, you can argue, clearly a great set of guards that they have. And they're right there with just about anybody in terms of their ability. They need some help from the other guys. I don't feel bad for them losing that game. I know it was disappointing. I understand all that. You wanted to win, blah, blah, blah. But, you got to keep chugging away here, and you got some good big games coming up. You win them. Go to Vegas. I would like nothing more than to see on that Saturday before Selection Sunday, New Mexico and Utah State play, because it's tough to beat that team 3 times straight and all that stuff, and that would be a fun situation for the Mountain West, and the Mountain West, which is breaking up here after next season anyway. But these two teams playing at a high level, I was impressed with both teams, and the Aggies, they're going to be fine. They lost the game, but I don't think they really lost anything in terms of what they're trying to accomplish.
At home against San Jose State tomorrow night. San Diego State will be in on Saturday, and they'll play for second place with the Aztecs then.
Yeah, and that's another huge game, so you really can't wallow in that as far as that goes. There's so much more for this team to accomplish that I don't think they'll have any problem just wiping that away and moving on, because it's not like it was a devastating loss. It's not like BYU when they lost those 2 games in November in football, when that situation is that kept them out of the conference title game, obviously. Here, this loss is keeping them out of nothing that they want to get.
DJ and PK.
#NHL.
The Four Nations Faceoff continues with the title game Thursday. Team USA and Team Canada have advanced. They played a wild game Saturday with multiple fights breaking out in the first 9 seconds. Had guys dropping the gloves right from the get-go. The U.S. ended up winning that game 3-1. So now they will play for the title. Sweden and Finland have been eliminated.
Don't be booing my anthem.
Don't be booing my anthem.
That's all I'm going to tell you.
PK will drop the gloves.
I won't. They will.
Thursday night, 6 o'clock, Team USA and Team Canada. And then back at it on the weekend. Mike Folta, radio voice of the Utah Hockey Club, is going to join us at 9 o'clock this morning. Steve Cleveland is here to talk hoops at 8 o'clock. And it's also a Utah Jazz Ticket Tuesday. We're going to be giving away Jazz tickets later in the show to see the Jazz in Oklahoma City Friday at the Delta Center. So plenty still ahead. The question of the day is coming up next. DJ and PK, that is what is trending. It's brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Question of the day next. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present?
This is JJ and Alex.
ESPN has a how this is going to play out all the way up until the college football playoff of 2025. This is your ultimate way too early. Your number 3 seed in the college football playoff for next year is the University of Utah.
What?
Hey now.
No.
Yeah, why not?
The Utes?
New offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new you. Literally, new you. The crazy thing about this is that I have no argument against it. Why would you make an argument that Utah couldn't be in that conversation? And I know BYU fans out there are pshawing, but you were in the same spot last year.
The Utah offense scores as many touchdowns as New Mexico did last year. How much different would their season have looked? They have a lot of recent success when they play complementary football. When that offense is up to the task, combined with that defense, they win a lot. I could see it happening.
Stop. I don't want to get your hopes and dreams up.
I'm making a case.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The guys you know and trust, talking about the teams you can't live without. This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. Question of the morning. The Utes sweep the Kansas schools. Could an NCAA tournament bid be possible? Do you dare to dream? Chad, if they win the conference championship, that is the only path forward.
I disagree. I knew you'd choose this one, though.
Chad
Your
is
love of
in
college
red.
basketball.
Chad is in red.
No, that's not true.
Scott, if they go undefeated in conference play, so they don't have to win the conference tournament title, but they got to win out in the regular season, then Joe says they can get in.
Well, if Ken Palm says that if BYU has a winning record in conference, they'll get in, why wouldn't the Utes get in if they had a winning record? What BYU have did that Utah have not did.
The classic quote.
What would be the difference? Help me out here.
Strength of non-conference schedule.
Except?
Not really, huh?
Utah has beaten BYU.
Yes.
So that's...
You do have that going for them. And obviously there's a second game coming up, which to win out, they'll have to claim that game in the regular season finale.
Yeah, but I don't think they have to win out then.
3 more losses. That is the deal now. Now, a couple of those are in league, obviously. So the non-conference schedule, basically neither one of them played much of anybody.
No.
And nor did they look very good in the non-conference. Arguably, BYU had one more good win than BYU in the non-conference. For whatever that's worth.
Ken Palm wasn't talking about the non-conference.
He was talking about getting to 11-9, and you'll get in.
Right. So why couldn't they do the same thing? What would be the difference?
I looked at Ken Palm's numbers. He's got Utah down at 76. That's a lot of ground to make up on BYU. He's got them 40 points behind. 40 spots behind. BYU's up in the 30s. And I think that you have to be top 40 to know you're in the 40s. You're on the bubble, but you got a decent chance, but you could miss.
Well, they talk about BYU being on the bubble, so what difference does it make if they're in the 30s? I mean, it's right now anyway. It's not, the tournament isn't being decided tonight.
Can they get in with 12 losses? Assuming they win out and they lose a conference tournament game at some point. But 12-8 in the league.
Oh, 12-8. They're going bowling.
Going bowling.
12-8? Yeah. Why wouldn't they?
Kevin dislikes this entire discussion. Easy there.
Why?
One game at a
freaking
time.
Mr. Ed over here?
Yeah, I am. One game at a time. You got to sell it.
Well, whatever, one game at a time.
What do you think the odds are of them actually winning out and winning the last 5, considering there's 3 road games in the last segment we were talking about? Yeah, right. The Huntsman Center, 14-3. They got ASU and West Virginia coming in. Those look like winnable games at home.
Yeah, I should win both those games.
You can get those?
Yeah.
So that gets you to 9 conference wins, but at UCF, at Arizona, and at BYU. 3 road games there.
Yeah, but that's what you want.
Well, you want to get marquee wins.
Yeah.
Change your status very quickly by going to Arizona and winning.
Oh, big time. Yes.
UCF, not so much. They're bottom of the league, and BYU is...
It's a road win, though.
BYU's top half. Yeah, it's a road win. Not the quality of the other two, but
any road win in this conference, that's what's great about this conference, man. Any road win is a very good win, and if you put together a streak, that means you're beating good teams. To win 4 or 5 in a row, like Kansas State, they came in Saturday with 6 in a row, I think it was. Well, there's no way in this conference, if you win 6 in a row, that they're going to be 6 dogs. It just doesn't work that way.
Not possible.
Right.
Too many quality teams.
So they have now won 2 in a row. And if they could find, and 3 out of 5, if they could find a way, and it's much easier to talk about it than doing it, if they could find a way to get on a streak, they could win 4 or 5 in a row here, they will have marquee wins that people will notice. You go to McHale, and with all those freaking old-timers there, the Snowbirds are there in full force. Place is tough. You look at the arena there, and you see nothing but old people. They shove the students over in the side, and it's a tough place to play. It's been a tough place to play for friggin' 40 years since Lute Olson got the thing. Kelvin Sampson was talking about, because they went in there and won on Saturday, and he was talking about how he thinks it's sort of sad that the legacy of Lute Olson is lost to a degree. He is the foundation. He built the program. He created everything they have. He created. He's the Lavelle Edwards of the U of A basketball, and it's a fact. And so he's talking about that. And going there has been very difficult to win for many, many years. Legendary players have come through at the college level, and they've gone to a slew of pros. So you win that ball game, you are right on target, assuming you beat UCF. You lose to UCF, you kind of run in place. If they go 0-2 in their next 2 road games, then they're probably out the door. And it's like, okay, you're just a decent home team, but you're not a good road team. And road wins in college hoop are the most precious to acquire, and the committee always
respects that. They always respect that.
And it means more.
And right now the Utes are 1-6 in true road games. So get that to 4-6 with wins at Arizona and BYU, and the committee can look at you different.
Yeah, those will be 2 high-quality wins on the road. Yeah.
Take a 20-win record to the NCAA tournament if you pull that off.
I think UCF is, you're not going to most likely get Arizona if you don't beat UCF. The way it plays out, most likely. So they'll get a little warm-up test here on the weekend, and then next week, Arizona. But the good thing for them is I think they've put themselves in. They're not I never look at that stuff. You're a much bigger college basketball fan than I am. You got 68 chances to get in, basically, if you can't. And I just see what the selection thing is, who's on the bubble, who isn't. I admire guys like Lenardi, who somehow made a career out of something that is like a 4 or 5 week lifespan. Good for him. All I know is if you win, you'll increase your chances each stinking time. I mean, that's just the truth. And that's what's really cool about this, is you've got this opportunity here. And take advantage of it, man. You played well in both games. You used your height against Kansas State and dominated. Just 21 offensive boards, man. That's super, super impressive. But you got to back it up. And that's the thing about this conference. It's not what have you done for a week or a game. It's what have you done over 20. Majerus used to talk about that. That's why he thought that the conference season was the purest form of competition, because it's over the long haul. It's not a game or two where you can isolate.
The Utes sweep the Kansas schools. Can an NCAA tournament bid actually be possible? Doug says they could if they won out in the regular season with victories at Arizona and at BYU. They won't, but they could.
Right.
No belief in the 1-6 road team. Suddenly putting together 3 straight road wins. That'd be a stunning turnaround.
Yeah.
Team that hasn't had a 4-game win streak all season suddenly wins 6 in a row. No, 7 in a row to close out the regular season.
I don't think they need to win out, though.
They can drop one along the way.
Yeah, because then the games in Kansas City count.
There's a chance to pile up some more there, yes. You can't get the true road wins there.
Doesn't matter.
But you could get marquee wins.
Yeah. You will. If you win, you will. You know, if you can win 2 ball games there, yeah. It's possible. It's conceivable. And it's not a long shot stretch. It's unlikely, but it's not something that, I just can't see that happening. I can. They've got some life now.
They did have that. Saw the coach over there fist pumping at the end of the game.
He should. Yeah. There's no reason why he isn't. He should be excited. I don't think he's coaching for his job.
There was a time I thought he was, but I'd agree with you now. I don't think he is.
No, I don't think. I never really thought that. Why? This is his first year in the Big 12. Whittingham had 2 losing seasons his first 3 years. What was the difference?
Whittingham, a ton of credibility built up with 3 double-digit win seasons.
In the Mountain West.
And the undefeated season.
In the Mountain West.
Right.
Which is a dog league.
And if he had built up the credibility going to previous NCAA tournaments?
In the Pac-12, which was a much tougher league.
Yep.
So, It's apples and kumquats.
It is apples and kumquats.
It's not the same thing.
But a stretch of seasons not going to the NCAA tournament is a problem, regardless of your league, when you're the U.
No, I don't think so. Not today. You're looking at it historically.
Yes, historically. I think the other thing that he has going for him now, and this is why the history doesn't match up, is paying a coaching buyout unless you really have to. Why do it? You need money for other things. You're going to be paying players.
Right. And
so don't spend the money on the cash over here unless you really have to.
And we had Steve Bartle in on Friday, our Ute Insider. You can catch all his work at KSLSports.com. And he was talking about their NIL being like between $2 and $3 million. BYU, you're not going to outbid us. They're going to have a kid next year making 8.5.
8.5.
And so you expect Craig
yeah.
Smith to walk on water here? No. So that's why I never believed, fine, fire him. It ain't going to make a lick of difference. Zero difference.
You're getting outspent like that.
Yeah, it won't make a difference at all. You can bring in Danny Hurley or Bobby Hurley or Billy Hurley and whichever Hurley you want, and it's not going to make a difference. You're going to have to pony up the money. Kids want money, especially every sport, but I can argue especially in that sport.
But he's got them towards the middle of the league now. And they ought to finish with a winning record.
Oh, overall?
Yes.
Oh, of course they will.
So
I mean, if you schedule 8-9 dog games in the non-conference, if you don't finish with a winning record, something's really wrong.
Right, but until they swept this weekend, it looked like they were on track to finish with a losing record.
What does that mean?
Well, like you said, you scheduled a bunch of dogs, so you have a winning record.
On track? What is track? Let's wait and see the season when it ends. How can you say that? You don't
because
know
they
that.
would have dropped to 13-13, and looking at the games they had coming up, I think they would have finished with a losing record.
But they didn't lose those games.
Agreed. And
well, of course you would agreed. It's a fact.
I know, and I don't think he's going to get fired. But if they'd lost him, wouldn't rule it out.
But they didn't.
I know.
My point is they weren't on track for anything. They're on track to play UCF on Saturday. That's the only thing they're on track for. That's it. And go from there. I mean, you can't, in this league, it's stupid to assume anything because there's so much quality competition every which way you turn. And I don't see anything as an absolute given. I really, this league's so competitive, man. But the only thing I can guarantee is Houston is going to guard the crap out of you.
And there'll be a bunch of blue hairs at Arizona home games.
Yeah, but I'm just familiar with that because I've been there. I don't know what the crowd's like in Houston or how it seats in Texas Tech. I don't know that Lubbock has snowbirds in the manner that
Arizona
Phoenix
does.
down to the border does. As far as that goes, it's the same thing with Tad Boyle. They're 1-13. Should he be under the gun? Not in my mind. You're going to a new league. You have to give the new teams time to adjust. And good on Arizona. They didn't need any time to adjust. Good for them. They're tied for second place right now. And we'll see how they do. But this league is a bear. And these teams that got in here, the new teams, I'd be real hesitant to make change unless you really, really have great issues. And I don't think Utah, for Craig Smith, really, really has great issues. They can do it and buy him out and whatever, but to me, that just seems like you're just changing for change's sake. And I suppose if they lost out, that could be another story. I mean, you could, if they were on track for a losing record, then I can say, which I disagree with, because I don't think they're on track for anything. I didn't know what track they were on. I thought, now I know they got 2 big wins. That's all that matters to me. And now they got to back it up. If they don't back it up, then it's going to be for naught and it's going to be disappointing. I still wouldn't make a change, but they've put themselves in a position to go ahead and make a difference this season. That's what's exciting, is that they've got, and we're down to literally a handful of games in regular season that I think will define the entire complexion of the season because winning, they needed this sweep, and they got it. This was huge. Obviously the best week they've had this whole season. Now they've put themselves in a position to make a move. And I am super curious, but I can't tell you which way they're going to go. I can't say, oh, man, I feel pretty good about them going down this path, or no, they just won a couple of home games, whoop-de-doo. They're not really that good. Because they've been in a level of inconsistency. Now, do they have some consistency? For their sakes, I hope. But I am super intrigued. I expect, if I compare it to BYU and Utah State, I expect Utah State and BYU to do well. Now, obviously, the Utes played last night, so they got one less game, and the Cougs got 6 games. I expect minimum out of BYU, minimum 3-3, minimum. I feel more confident about them. Same thing with the Ags. Utah, I don't know, and I love it, actually, when I don't know. That makes it more fun for me. When I say, I don't have a feel. I've watched them play a ton of times, and we only got 5 games left, but I still don't have a feel.
18-15 overall, 9-11 in the conference when it's all said and done.
That's what your
That'd
prediction?
be my best guess, sitting here here this morning.
All right.
And I get your point. If they don't make their free throws at home against Kansas State, that's a 5-point win. If they struggle and shoot down in the 60s, maybe they lose that game.
Yeah.
So I can't sit there and guarantee. But if I had to guess right now, 18-15.
And what's that? 9-11.
And 9-11.
So you got to go in.
And I would not make a coaching
what are they
change
going?
off that.
2-3 down the road, down the stretch. You're saying? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
In league.
Got them going 2-3.
So losing all road, winning home.
That would be the most obvious. There's a couple that could flip. Maybe they could lose to West Virginia at home. Maybe they could win at UCF. So that's probably a little wiggle room right there.
I think both those things can happen. Both possible scenarios.
Right. I could miss on both games and then come up with the same numbers.
I understand.
And I gave them 1 win in the tournament, but not 2.
Hard to say because you don't know who they're playing. But yeah.
Right. But figuring they're going to play one of the bottom 4 teams in the league in the tournament, and they can win that on a neutral floor. And then they play someone who's between 5 and 8 on a neutral court. So I probably pick against them there. I figured they're going to finish in the 9 to 12
How many guys
range.
get the bye? Is it first 5?
So what they do is they play, unless they change the format, they play the bottom 4 versus the next 4.
Yeah.
So the top 8 get a bye.
Oh, top 8? Okay.
And then the winners play 5, 6, 7, 8. So the top 4 are getting a double bye. So they never play more than 4 games in a day. They knock out 4 teams day 1, 4 teams day 2, 4 teams day 3, and now you're down to the semis. And Majerus would hate that tournament because theoretically you could play 5 games in a row. But the truth is most teams aren't good enough to do that. If you have to play on the opening day, you're going to get knocked out.
The great thing about the Utes now is they've got my attention.
Because those were quality wins at home?
Yes.
And they're back to 500-ish. I mean, 7 and 8. They're not there yet, but.
Yes, those were big times. The best week of the season.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. How do you save an all-star weekend? Well, the NHL's trying, and we'll get to that next.
Take DJ and PK wherever you go. Find every moment of every show in podcast form by searching DJ and PK on your favorite platform. This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day is Dr. Dre, brought to you by Live Nation. Legendary rapper and producer Dr. Dre was born on this day in 1965. For all the live concerts and events in 2024, check out livenation.com. The Big 6-0.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yep, 60 years old today. All right, DJ and PK got the question up on our Facebook page. How much are you into the 4 Nations Tournament? Colin, I'm loving it. Sets a new standard for all-star games.
Well, it's not an all-star game.
It is not.
So it's a different standard. This is not anything close to all-stars.
Scott, if only other all-star games meant something.
This is not an all-star game.
I miss the MLB all-star game being important.
What level of importance has it had that it doesn't have now?
Matt says, I love it. It's way more interesting. And with athletes that actually care.
Yeah, we're comparing it to basketball.
There it is. And Giannis says, hey, USA versus the world. Which wouldn't be exactly the same thing, but it'd give us some of that flavor. And I know there have been people dismissing it, but it sounds like a good idea. Why not try it? Look at everything else you tried.
Well,
I suppose they could undercut that and not play hard, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to LeBron.
It's like a mob movie. If he tells them not to do it, they're not going to do it.
He's the leader. And if he doesn't want, I mean, he decides right before the game he's not going to play.
Yep.
Could he have decided earlier and let somebody else take his place?
Probably, yes.
But he didn't. And then we hear that he is upset that, Doncic and all the concessions they're giving him, and he didn't get any. Okay. You find reasons to be unhappy. I guess you can find reasons to be perturbed about it. And here we go. And most folks say that he decided not to play hard, and nobody else does. But we're talking about hockey, though. We're not talking about basketball.
Jimmy, best all-star format. If USA can win on Thursday, U.S. Hockey would have won the Juniors, the Four Nations Cup, and they have a chance for a hat trick with the Olympics coming up in 2026.
Yeah, I don't see where this is an all-star format. They've just decided to have an in-season tournament.
Mm-hmm. At the time when they normally hold the all-star game in February. But there's 4 all-star teams instead of 2, and they're sorted by nation.
But those guys aren't getting an all-star break. They're getting 0.
They are not.
Yeah. And I think that's why the club sent Doan down to Tucson. He's young, keep him playing. I assume they'll bring him back when they reconvene and get going again.
He doesn't need 2 weeks off.
He's been killing it, too, by the way, since going back down.
Of course. He's a Sun Devil, man.
2 goals in their most recent game.
Yeah, you can take your Cooley. You can get your Gunther. I'm going to take my Doan.
You were so happy when you told me that.
Told you what?
As soon as the team moved here, you're like, okay, here's the deal. You don't know this because there's no way you're following Coyote hockey. And you're like, you're right. I'm not. Their best player, his kid's really good. And guess where his kid went to college? He played for ASU.
Yeah.
He's my guy.
Their all-time best player. Yeah, he's retired now, coaching, I think, in Toronto. But, yeah, he is, yeah.
That was the first thing I learned. As soon as it was official, you're telling me, all right, here's what you don't know. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're taking a break. When we come back, Steve Cleveland, we will talk NCAA Tournament potential for the locals with Steve Cleveland and about tonight's game with BYU hosting Kansas. That's on the way. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Take The Zone with you wherever you go. Download the KSL Sports app to get live streaming of your favorite shows.
Downloading.
Download the latest podcasts and get all the latest breaking news on the teams you can't live without. Everything you need delivered right to your phone.
Let's go get them where we can get them.
Just search KSL Sports on your app store of choice. Download it now. The KSL Sports app, presented by University of Utah Health.
How was your Valentine's? How was your President's Day weekend? Did you go out of town, go someplace warm? I did, and it was sweet. Glad to be back working. And speaking of working, we work to make money, right? That's the point. Working is working to make money, right? I think we would.
One of the coolest stations in the world.
Utah's highest rated, most listened to sports radio show for over 20 years.
Everyone's listening.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Hans and Scotty Wednesday. They're going to be at RGS Exteriors from noon to 3, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We got Mike Folta, radio voice of the Utah Hockey Club, coming up at 9 o'clock. We got a Utah Jazz Ticket Tuesday. We'll give away tickets later this hour to see the Jazz as they return to action Friday night. They're going to be at the Delta Center. Oklahoma City Thunder will be in town. We'll send somebody out to that game. And we got to talk college hoops with Steve Cleveland. It's February. Football is over. Half dozen games to go, 5 or 6, depending on how your schedule falls here, PK. Before we go to the conference tournaments, are you feeling it now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now's the time. Yeah. Once you pass President's Day, and I covered college basketball for many, many years as a beat writer for the Watchdog.
But
even before that,
you could just feel it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The way the players talk to you, the way the coaches talk to you.
Yeah. It's on.
It's on. Yeah.
Right.
You know what you're playing for, whether you're playing for a league title, whether you're playing for seeding in the NCAA. Yeah. You're on the bubble trying to get in.
Right. Yeah.
You're trying to bail out and save a winning season.
And for the Utah, it was all those years was mostly seeding.
Playing for the conference title and seeding.
And then for BYU, it was about getting there. Yeah. And once you pass President's Day, I don't know you could probably come up with some relation to another sport. But I always felt once we got past President's Day, it was on. And it was like, okay, I am immersed in college basketball until whichever team I covered is done, which for Utah, it was always well into March.
DJ PK, and we are joined now by Steve Cleveland. Coach, good morning.
Morning, fellas.
I am curious. Did you turn on the TV over the weekend, look at the pit, and have really fond memories? Did you have nightmares, or do you see it and you turn it off? Or you know it's coming and you avoid it completely?
Well, you know what? It's always a difficult place to play, but I did have one of the most miraculous wins ever there when we were young, and we go to the pit, and I think at that time New Mexico was rated 13th or 14th. They were very good. And we came in there and shot the lights out and upset them, and then beat UTEP the following couple nights later. So
in triple overtime, Coach.
Yeah, I know. It was. I've had some really cool experiences there, and I'll tell you what's most difficult is getting out of the arena and going up to the locker room. It's mile high there anyway. I can remember running up and excited and really, and all of a sudden I'm like coughing, and I'm not sure I can make it to the top and get back to the locker room. But we had some special moments there, and good memories. Tough place to play. Always had good teams there.
Yeah, the crowd it's the biggest thing. It's their New Mexico's in Albuquerque. It's like their Super Bowl in a sense, because that New Mexico basketball was always the link to the big time. And, it was always something. I was there both those games, covered them for the newspaper, and they were stunning. To me, that's still the most stunning game that I think I've ever covered in terms of outcome is when your team, your first year, that was basically thrown together on the fly, and you had what you had, and New Mexico was riding high, and you went in there and beat them. It was shocking. I still can remember the looks on those people's faces as I was.
You guys have a better memory than I do. But there was a fan there, dressed up. Do you remember his name? I'm going to tell a story, but.
Well, not his name as much as PK's nickname for him, which he shared possibly the very first year we were doing the show, and we had not talked about it. And when PK said this nickname, I knew exactly who he was talking about. And I believe it or not, I've never been to a game in the pit. By the time I got here, I didn't get to go to conference tournaments there, and we didn't travel in the regular season. So I've never been to Albuquerque, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But PK says this nickname, which he's about to say, I knew exactly the fan because I'd seen him on camera and thought, what's the deal with that guy? That guy's got to have a story.
If it's the same guy, small guy, all tatted up, I used to call him. I called him the sewer rat.
Sewer rat. Okay, so the funny thing about that fella, and I keep thinking, coming to my mind is like Zeke, but it's probably not. And I'm getting old and not remembering a lot of things in my life. But I'll never forget this guy because he sat really close to us.
Yeah.
And used about as much profanity as anyone could during a full game. And he was only a few steps from me. And he was, it was just blasphemous. I mean, the guy was just going off and off and off. And so we end up, like you said, winning that game. And going up to the locker room, and I can never forget somebody pounding on the door as hard as they could. And it was this little guy, all tatted up and everything. Coach Clean, what an amazing win. I started going crazy. And so we had our little reunion, and then after the game, he waited around until we were getting on the team bus. And then I thought, oh, my gosh, this guy might be dangerous, And he comes up to me again and said, man, that was the most amazing thing. And from that time on, he became my greatest fan. And he asked me, he said, do you think I could get some BYU gear? And I said, yes. And so anyway, long story short, I got his address. I sent him a couple of jerseys. Every time we went to UNM, he was wearing a BYU jersey. Still yelling at me. But I'll never forget that. And to be honest with you, he was a really sweet guy, but he was just crazy when he got in the game, and when he's rooting for his Lobos. But that was a memory that will always stick with me.
His nickname, most people call him, that occasionally gets referenced in broadcasts, is Snake. And his name's actually
exactly right.
Mark is actually his name.
It's what, Mark?
Mark, yeah.
Oh, okay. But Snake is it. That's it. You guys, I'm glad you're still young and have memories. So, yeah, it was a Snake. He was incredible. And as Pat mentioned, too, go on there and play UTEP and beat them in triple overtime. It was one of the, honestly, I don't know that I've ever been involved in something that was more unique and more better, more crazy, and it's a memory I'll never lose. I mean, I forget a lot of things these days, but I'll never forget that weekend. That just made our year and got us jump-started us into rebuilding the program.
Yeah, I think that was the last week of the regular season, if I remember correctly, and then you went straight to Vegas. This time of year, I was talking with DJ, me covering college basketball for so many years. Once you got to President's Day, it was on. You take a look at Utah, 2 big wins. Utah State loses in New Mexico, but I don't think they really lost anything in what they need to accomplish. In fact, you can gain a lot from that. They played them tough, literally right down to the end. And so from those two teams' perspective, we'll get to BYU in a bit, but from those two teams' perspective, I think Utah State is bearing down on an NCAA berth. I'd be surprised if they didn't get it. Utah has a little work to do, but they put themselves in a position to at least be considered now if they can finish strong.
Yes, and I watched that game, every bit of it, and it was they played so well, and their size, and I watched them when they beat BYU by 1 or 2 there up at their place. I watched that game, but I haven't watched Utah play a lot. But they were so solid defensively, made big baskets. It was fun to watch them play. And you know what? I think it's been a bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. I think there are a lot of naysayers early on that, Utah, they're talking about job situations and all this negativity. And the fact is, they've been playing some of the best basketball they've played in a long time. And it's just fun to watch. They just seem really connected and together, and I've enjoyed watching them when I've had an opportunity. But they're well coached, and that was a huge win the other night. And obviously they had beaten BYU previous to that, so fun to watch all the teams. I mean, you look at Utah State, BYU. There's good things happening, and like you said, Utah probably has some work to do. But finish strong, win the tournament. There's a lot of different ways to get to that NCAA tournament, but it's just fun and being in the community and seeing the success of all the teams.
How long does it take to convince guys, especially in this era with so many transfers, that if you play together, you just talked about how good their defense was, how connected they were. Obviously, they rebounded great. So when they got a miss, they ended the possession. They got the rebound most of the time. If they hold a team under 70 points, they win. And so much of basketball is how do we get a shot and are you shooting the three well? If Utah holds people under 70, they win. If they don't hold people under 70, they don't win. That BYU's the exception. That game went overtime. It was in the 60s when it went to OT. It finished 73-72. It's like guys, if you defend, you can actually do this. And I think they need something because they're 1-6 on the road and they got 3 road games down the stretch. And defense travels. We know all the cliches. You can hang your hat on that on the road. How long does it take before guys will actually listen to you, even when you know you're telling them the absolute truth?
Well, you don't win championships unless you can win on the road, and not necessarily just a championship, but getting to the NCAA tournament or getting to the postseason. And I think that, I was very fortunate to have good assistant coaches. Heath Troyer was an assistant coach that I had at Fresno City College, at BYU, and then for a couple of years at Fresno State. And he learned from some really good coaches. Boyd Grant, I know a lot of people won't know who he is, but Boyd was a great defensive coach there at Fresno State when I was there, when I was an impressionable, high school and junior college coach. And Ron Adams, and Ron has been someone was a mentor to me, continues to be a good friend. He's been with the Golden State Warriors for a number of years now. But those are the people that I grew up with. And everything was defense. And then those are the days when Fresno State was really good and winning games 46-45, and there was no shot clock, So they guarded, no shot clock, hold the ball, and Boyd won, I think, three championships there. That's 3 or 4 championships, and I grew up on that. And so, when you're a high school coach, you're impressionable. You go to their practices, you watch them, you learn how to defend. The matchup zone was something that I learned as a very young coach from brilliant men, and it really helped me to be successful at each level. And not that, we're winning a ton of championships, but I was a better coach because I had the influence of men who understood how important defense was. And you could go around the country and talk to the greatest coaches and bring Ron Adams' name up, and everybody's going to tell you that dude's a genius. He's a genius. He's amazing. And Boyd got him started. He wasn't a successful college coach. He had about a 3-year stint at Fresno and didn't have a lot of success. But then all of a sudden, he gets into the NBA for a number of years and has just been amazing with the Warriors. But those are guys that I learned from. And, I always consider myself, I love to tinker with sideline out of bounds plays, quick hitters, things, I was always creating new sets and quick hitters offensively. But at the end of the day, most of my success came from the influence of those men.
Did you feel something once you hit President's Day that it was really on now, as I've been talking about?
Yeah, I think you start looking at the standings, and the competitiveness of the Big 12, and you realize, Houston, Arizona, Tech, ISU, they've all been pretty good. You got BYU and KU and Baylor. I mean, everybody's bunched up, and every game, every night is going to be fun to watch, and it is competitive. And I believe in the Big 12 that there could be 7 or 8 teams going to the NCAA tournament, depending on how people finish. And this, I don't know if this is the toughest league in the country, but it's competitive, man. And there's lots of travel and great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches, that make this league really special. And so, I'm looking at Utah, and those 2 wins were huge. And BYU also, after losing 2 games in a row, they come back and beat West Virginia, and then they beat K-State, and then they've got a big one at Kansas tonight. But it's just so competitive. And I just think that you get hot at the right time here, and who knows? And I'm not going to go to the Big 12 tournament, but, man, that's going to be competitive and fun to watch.
What does BYU have to do to beat Kansas? They're both 17-8. They're both 8-6. Whoever wins this game is all alone in 5th place in the Big 12 and looking really good for the NCAA tournament. And just working on seeding. Kansas probably already looks really good for the NCAA tournament, but BYU would really help themselves. What do you think? What's the key? What are you watching for?
Well, I think a couple of things. Number one is that statistically they're very similar. BYU's averaging close to 80 a game, Kansas to 77. Defensively they're kind of on the same mark. So it's a really competitive game. Kansas has maybe the edge with seniors and having some real veteran guys. They have a lot of seniors, and I think they're a team. You know, Dickinson at 7 foot, Zeke Mayo, Harris, Adams. They're all there's real leadership there, and a team that's been together. But they've been vulnerable, and they've lost games that surprised me. So Bill Self has been a good friend for a long time, and he'll have them ready. But I do believe, as you both have mentioned, that there's going to probably be 7 or 8 teams. But the key for BYU to beat Kansas, I think, is on the boards. Kansas is so big, and then they rebound the ball so well. They can't give Kansas second-chance points, especially at home. I mean, BYU's going to play better at home, and Saunders is doing what he's done. He's been so good all year. Demon Yegor has been better and more consistent catchings. You know, it's fun to watch these younger guys kind of step up right now. But I think it's important that BYU get that kind of scoring. And BYU is becoming a really difficult place to win games in for visitors. It's just intense fan base that just make that environment. But I think that, you know, for BYU, I think rebounding is a huge key. And they're going to have to keep them off the board, take them away from second. I've watched Kansas play 3 or 4 times. You know, Mayo and Harris, I mean, they're good guards and they're consistent. But I don't think they have guys that can just take over the game. If Dickinson comes in and scores 20 and 10, I think they win. You know, if he doesn't, then we'll see what happens. But that's going to be a tough guard. I think Kate is going to play more minutes against Kansas than maybe Traore, because it's a situation that he's got such size and he's so dominant in there that I mean they're switching with Traore and Foose and going back and forth with each other, playing the big. But Hunter Dickinson's a handful, and I think if he has a big game and Kansas can keep it close, they've got a chance. But I think both teams are going to the tournament.
Kevin Young has tinkered with his rotations, which is understandable. It's easy to say in retrospect, but, you know, he was so new and they were new to him and everything was new, and he's finding out more about his guys. I'm wondering, man, he tries to play so many guys. How difficult is that?
Yeah, I mean, as a coach, usually by this time of the year, you've kind of got yourself in a position where you're playing. You've got a rotation. And certainly Saunders and Yegor and Traore and Catchings and Baker and Hall, Cada, I mean, they're all playing. The guys that are kind of X factors for me are Mag and Boscovich. They're just sturdy and strong, and can come in there and get second rebounds and third rebounds, and they've actually, I think, been difference makers for this team. Certainly, Saunders has led this team the entire year, and Yegor seems to have more confidence and playing better. You know, Nell's there for shooting. He can't, you know, it's hard for him to guard. His minutes will be limited. Traore's the same thing. You know, against really big dominant post players, he struggles with that. The guy that for me is Catchings. I think he's found some confidence. Baker's always been consistent coming in and out, but you just never know. The key to this team, to be honest with you, is probably Dallin Hall. And I know a lot of people love him and a lot of people are not high on him. But there's some leadership there, and anytime the game gets close and things are really important, Dallin Hall seems to be on the floor because he does make good decisions. He's a tough cookie, and he hits some big threes in the last 3 or 4 weeks in games that were really meaningful. But they are playing a lot of guys. I mean, all the guys I've mentioned are playing. And it'll be interesting to see what the rotation is. For me, I was always more comfortable knowing I had my 7 or 8 guys, 6, 7 guys. And then depending who was in foul trouble or who had the hot hand, those would help you to make some decisions. But this group's pretty connected right now. The win over Kansas, I think, probably seals the deal. They're probably in a great position to they'd be 9-6. They'd probably be still in about 4th or 5th place. But I think a win tonight would, I think, really seal the deal for BYU getting to the tournament.
You know, the thing with Mag that I didn't see early in the season but seems to be on display here the last 4 or 5 games is I don't know if he's a better passer than I realized, or maybe he's just becoming a better passer, understanding the offense and his teammates and all that kind of stuff. And it's not like I'd want him, running an offense. I'm not saying that. But when he gets the ball in the corner and he's got guys running at him, he can pass off the dribble and get guys layups and dunks in the paint. A little surprising.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And I would have never thought, because I watched practices earlier, I would have never thought the guy would play. But, man, he's got a motor. That dude has a motor. He is just nonstop. And Boscovich is the same thing. They're just two tough, strong-bodied guys that give them kind of an edge, and they're not having to back down against teams that have bigger bigs, and they're not afraid to compete. And so those, for me, Mag and Boscovich, I think, are both the surprises for me. And I'm really happy to see Yegor have some more confidence. I think he was really second guessing himself, and there was times where he was never, he wasn't playing meaningful minutes. He was sitting watching, and I think the coaching staff has a little more confidence in him. But it'll be fun to see how this thing plays out. But I agree with you. Mag and Boscovich have been two guys that have really brought some energy and some intensity and just some toughness.
Coach, we appreciate the time. Thanks for the memories of the pit. The Aggies' memories aren't that great, but as PK says, they've still got a lot of their goals in front of them, so I got to put that behind them.
I thank you for reminding me of the snake. I wrote it down. I'm not going to forget it.
There you go. All right. Thanks,
See
Coach.
you guys.
Steve Cleveland, former BYU basketball coach, joined us here on The Zone. Mike Folta, radio voice of Utah Hockey Club, is going to be here at 9 o'clock. We have Jazz tickets to give away. We will give them away in the next segment to see the Jazz and the Thunder Friday night at the Delta Center. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
You have to be able to shoot in the NBA now outside of maybe a big. I think we're going the direction of even if you're 6'8", if you're a non-shooter, you're in trouble. I've watched it, Ben. I've watched the evolution where you could have 3 non-shooters 10 years ago. Then it went to 2 non-shooters about 5 years ago. When are we getting to the point where it's 1 non-shooter? And eventually, do we go to 0 non-shooters? I don't know. But we're headed.
Celtics won last year with 0 non-shooters. If you're not going to be a great shooter, you really need to have a superpower elsewhere. And the 2 guys I would think about are Jimmy Butler and Ja Morant, who are non-shooters, Ja Morant's the most athletic player in the NBA, and Jimmy has some of the best on-court work ethic when he's dialed in as anybody we've seen. He's a great defensive player.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone. When it comes to the biggest moments in Utah sports history, these guys have seen it all. This is DJ and PK. DJ and PK on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Don't miss your chance to win big every week on The Zone. This week on Win Tickets Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to the Australian Pink Floyd show coming to the Sandy Amphitheater on Sunday, August 10th. Listen to The Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. DJ PK, we got a pair of Jazz tickets to give away, so let's do that right now. 801-575-ZONE. 801-575-ZONE. It's a Jazz Ticket Tuesday. Caller 12. 801-575-ZONE will win a pair of tickets to see the Jazz and the Thunder Friday, the 21st. That is this Friday at the Delta Center. Good luck. All right, just had Steve Cleveland on talking about the NCAA Tournament. It's President's Day. It's on. The stretch run is here. The Utes have swept the Kansas schools. They've improved to 15-11 on the year. They are now 7-8 in the Big 12. Could an NCAA Tournament bid be possible? Yes, it could be possible. Difficult, unlikely, odds are against it. Pick your favorite phrase, but not out of the realm. A lot of fans saying they got to win out.
They're going bowling. I feel it.
Tyler, it's pretty unlikely at this point, but a 4-1 finish with a loss at Arizona could do it if they have a reasonable Big 12 tourney appearance. That 4-1 would give them a couple of Q1 wins, a Q1 loss, and two Q2 wins. Add in 1 to 2 conference tournament wins that are probably quad 1 or 2, they would have a shot.
A shot, yeah, I agree.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Absolutely.
And let's see if Tyler is a Ute Cougar and Aggie. Utes, Jazz, Aggies. There's Tyler. Everybody loves everybody but BYU.
I watch that TV show.
Oh, yeah.
Love everybody but BYU.
Love everybody but BYU.
Yeah, it's funny.
Can you hum a few bars of the theme song? Doug, they could if they won out, but at Arizona, at BYU, they're not going to do that. He's not buying it. And David says, if they win the conference tournament, they're in. Otherwise, LOL. It's a lot of laughing, David.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think they have to win the conference tournament. Now, if they're playing for the conference title, wow, that might be good enough, right there.
22-12 out in the conference semis. Would that do it? I think it would.
It would for me.
That's 5 wins.
Yeah.
To close out the regular season, and that's 2 wins in the conference tournament.
Right.
Now, we're saying all of this, and you're probably screaming at your radio. Do you guys realize they're 1-6 in road games? Yes, we do. And they have 3 true road games left. So if they hold the form and they lose 2 or 3 of these 3 road games, they're going to the NIT.
Yeah, but I think you have to look at teams and see how they develop. And teams in November and December and even in January, they're not necessarily the same, especially in today's world where there's so many players coming and going, and you have to figure out who's who and doing what and all that stuff. And you look at BYU, they're not nearly the same team that they were early in the season. There's no doubt about it.
You can see them evolving.
Yeah.
I think that it's shocking how Utah State came together as quickly as they did, and I think they're definitely the outlier.
To me, it's not shocking at all.
Why?
Because they had core guys coming back.
Their 2 best players, who are guards who handle the ball a lot. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. Not breaking in a freshman.
The success that they've had, okay, I'll see that. But the fact that they're doing well.
No, I'm not surprised they're doing well.
Does the coach really matter there? If I had to choose between new coach and new players, I take new coach every time, because if that coach is worth a crap, he's going to go in there, and now you can be with these guys a lot more than you used to be able to, and so you could develop it.
Which you need because you have more developing to do.
Right.
So I agree with everything said about month by month and the learning curve and ramping these teams up. The problem is all the other teams are doing that as well.
Yeah, but who have they beaten? That's wow. I didn't see that coming. San Diego State at San Diego? Who else? And then in the end of the games, Boise, who's doing the shot making? Martinez. He's only been in college 14 years.
Get old, stay old.
And so he's been around, and Falstaff is a really good player.
In his 3rd year in the program.
I'm not discounting.
Much bigger role.
Yeah, he's a leader. I think he's the best all-around player. And so, no, I'm not that surprised. The league isn't really that good.
At the time, winning at Nevada seemed like a big deal, but Nevada has subsequently turned out to be, pretty middle of the road. They're beating the bad teams and losing the good teams.
Okay.
So that win. The Iowa win early on.
Sure, yeah. Great. I agree.
But other than that, I get your point. There's a lot of taking care of business here.
And
they've got a lot.
And there's a lot to be said for that.
And they've got a lot of big games in front of them here. The San Diego State,
that's the
Boise
fun part.
State, CSU.
They've done a lot, but they haven't done anything.
Yeah. Those 3 games, and then presumably you could have 2 or 3 more big games. Whoever's in that 4 or 5 game in the conference tournament, that'll be entertaining.
Oh, they're going to have big games, yeah.
Yeah.
They have big games that are already scheduled.
Whether it's
and
a
then if
quarter or
they
semi.
do what we expect them to do, they'll have big games in Vegas. Yeah, absolutely, man. They're in a position to accomplish a lot, and I'm excited for them to see what they can do. And they've got decent role players. I don't think those role players played as well as they had been in New Mexico, but that's somewhat understandable. I really can't criticize that loss. I mean, and of course, New Mexico shot way more free throws. That's college hoop.
They've got 3 conference losses, and that is easily the most explainable, most predictable defeat. That you went to the pit in a year when they were really good and lost by 3, and they shot twice as many free throws as you did.
Predictable.
Right. blowing the lead, the 9-point lead with 15 minutes to go at home, that's one. If you want to beat yourself up, go beat yourself up on that.
And basketball.
Or the Vegas loss. There you go. There's your 3 conference losses if you want to.
And Vegas was by 2 points or something like that.
3 points.
Yeah. Okay, on the road.
Mm-hmm.
The showgirls over there distracting you. All sorts of stuff. I've been to Thomas and Mack many times, and I've gotten distracted. Like when Van Horn was making those shots at the buzzer, I wasn't paying a lick of attention.
Bull. Everybody was paying attention.
I was over there looking at other stuff, man. Guy opened him. Did you see that shot? No, what happened? He just put one in at the buzzer. I said, big deal. I'll catch it tomorrow. Sure enough, what did he do? He put a shot in at the buzzer. and then in the final, he goes for like 37. And then we go back to the draft, and we're sitting there. They do the breakout interviews the day before the draft. The top guys, they all sit at a table, and you can go around, and I'm just following Van Horn. I'd covered him for 4 years. There was nothing more for me to say. I just sat there. One guy asked him, "You think you've done enough to be drafted this high?" I said, "He did enough in Vegas a couple of weeks ago. What are you talking about?" Or a couple of months ago, I mean. Did you see those games? And then somebody asked him, do you have a chip on your shoulder for not being recruited by Pac-10 schools, so you had to go to Utah? He was recruited by Pac-10 schools. He chose to go to Utah. All these assumptions. Hey, what about you, being a Mormon going in the NBA? I'm not a Mormon. Because he's white.
He's a white guy at Utah. He must be a Mormon who wasn't recruited by the Pac-10.
I know. He's right into the stereotypes. Yeah. And they were asking him, you weren't? Well, what's the deal about being a non-Mormon in Utah? They quickly pivoted, which was weird.
Got to be a quick thinker.
Right. And they were asking him about the makeup. And he looks at me and he says, "What do you think the makeup is?"
You're his research assistant.
Yeah. Because I'm just sitting there. I'm doing a story on the questions that are being asked to him.
Well, you've asked him everything at this point.
I know. 4 years.
Nothing left to talk about.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I covered him all the 4 years. Yeah, for sure. And so we're talking about that.
Just such a dinosaur now.
Yeah.
I mean, there are seniors who are playing, but they don't go to the NBA. They win in college, but they don't.
Yeah, and that was that year. Yeah. Him and Duncan went 1-2.
Right.
Both.
And they certainly don't stay at one school either.
Yeah.
I mean, Auburn's number one, and they won the big game with Alabama and all that. And they got like 6 guys scoring in double figures, and 5 of them are seniors.
And I got some news over the weekend that I was reading, and wow, man, this makes me nervous about the Jazz.
And that is?
Oh, I think we should get to it next.
Oh, look at you with the tease.
Yeah.
All right, fine. PK's sweating bullets. We'll all find out why together right after this break. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
Tim Reynolds, the AP, covers the NBA, does a phenomenal job at it. Where does this one rank? Has to be right up there.
I mean, it's one of one. The secrecy of it in this day and age is obviously one of a kind. I mean, it's crazy that they were able to pull it off with such secrecy, but now we know why it was so secret. If Luka found out about it, he'd have said no. Guys, nobody knows the Utah Jazz are in this trade. Like, literally nobody. You're going to help the Lakers, Danny, by facilitating this. Do you think that would have gone well? There was a lot of reasons for secrecy, but some people are definitely of the mindset of that this was not done totally on the up and up. But a lot of people are saying this isn't exactly the way you're supposed to do big business.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. 20 years and still going strong. Utah's #1 sports radio show for over 2 decades. You're listening to DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Hands and Scotty Wednesday at RGS Exteriors from noon to 3, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. All right, you're worried. You're sweating it.
Yeah. I saw over the weekend that Cooper Flagg said he'd like to return for another season. Now, I don't know if that was just posturing, but listening to him speak about it, it seemed like it was serious, and he doesn't really need to. I don't think he needs to posture as far as who he cares about, who's going to draft him, because if you waited till the following year, given the fact that so many teams tank, I don't know that you can pick your team. But if he does return, which I think would be a long shot because he'd be leaving a ton of money and then get the opportunity to get the bigger money the way the league is set up with the second and third contracts. You'd have to wait another year, so you might as well get started now. But apparently he's having the time of his life, which is cool to hear, and it actually would be cool from a personal development. If you love something, go ahead and continue to do it. The money will come, and he's getting money through other deals now. But the point being, the Jazz most desperately need to lose, man. They have to get a top 3 pick, especially if Flagg is gone.
Now the draft isn't as deep. It's not just losing him at the 1 spot,
right?
But
everybody moves up,
right? So you're thinking, well, we love the top 3, and suddenly it's a top 2. So what if you're drafting 3rd?
Right. Yeah, and you've got they got like 28 games to go, and it is super important. And they needed everything and then some to lose to the Clippers the other night. I mean, I realize Leonard wasn't playing, and I don't think he plays back to back. But still, you played well. Filipowski playing very well as they sat out Kessler. To me, this team, it's so weird because I see it coming together, playing better ball, and that makes me nervous for winning games.
You know me and numbers. I have a number in my head. At any time, I probably have 50 or 100 of them. But I have a number of how many games I think this team could win if they were trying to win games. What do you think that number is? You may not have considered this.
I haven't. But
go with your gut instinct. That's what you trust anyway.
Over the last 26 you're talking
over
about?
82 games. How many? If this team were trying to win, what would the record really be?
It's somewhat difficult to say because they may not have been given a guy like Collier as much opportunity. And so would he have developed?
That's
and
your
so
point. Sure.
If they just went with, we're going to try to win every game possible.
And I'm also like, how many of these guys sitting? You know, I think Clarkson actually had a real injury, and he would have sat. Markkanen, I think, would have played probably at least half the games he's missed.
Oh, and Kessler would have played the other night.
Kessler would not have rested at all.
Yeah, they said he had a thumb or something.
Yeah, right.
I would say in the 30, 37 comes to mind.
Oh, okay. That was a little higher than me. I thought 30.
But that's with the development of the young guys. But if they were trying to win,
would they develop?
If they were trying to win,
how would the minutes have been managed?
Collier wouldn't have been able to play the level that he has. They basically inserted him when he hadn't done anything to be inserted, except for a few minutes here and there.
Now he's taken off.
Right. And so that's.
But maybe he hasn't taken off because he never gets those minutes because they're trying to win.
Friggin' Stockton sat the bench. Darren Williams sat the bench. And Collier's playing big time.
Yep.
You tell me he's better than those guys? Well, if he is, then I'm going to kiss Ainge on the lips.
That's why the media is not allowed in large parts of the arena anymore.
He's going to be better than Stockton? Come on.
They call it the PK rule.
It's a PK rule.
Get out of town.
We've curtained off large sections of the downstairs.
I mean, 2 All-Stars, one a big-time Hall of Famer, didn't play the first year to the way Collier's getting these minutes over and over and over, and he's producing. So they probably wouldn't have the development. So there's no question that they're doing it the right way because it is about the young guys and doing their thing. And I don't even know that Kessler would be as developed as he is if they went and just decided we're all in to win at all times. But I'm nervous because I see this development now. When Collier has a 10-assist game and Kessler has a double-double with 3 blocks, I don't bat an eyelash anymore. And if they continue to do that and play Markkanen and play Collins, and Collins has been very good consistently. He's not a star, but in his role, he's been very consistent. Having him get 18 and 7 or 8 or 9, I don't bat an eyelash either.
He's just been so efficient. He doesn't. Yeah. There are guys who get that, but it takes so many shots to get it. You're like, this isn't winning basketball.
So what are they going to do here?
But
I would tell those guys when they broke the other day, okay, we don't have a game till March 7th. See you then. See if you can fool them. And wherever they went, stay there. And don't work out, guys. Last thing we want you to do is work out.
So help me if we find out one of you's been on a treadmill.
Yeah. Make sure that you do not maintain your conditioning.
Go to the beach and take a nap.
Yeah. And go to those all-inclusives so you can order. You don't have to order drinking food. You've already prepaid it, so you might as well have as much as you want.
Shrimp cocktail every hour on the hour.
I'm not saying alcoholic beverages, but still.
More mashed potatoes.
Yeah, go 3-4 times. Like you're on a cruise on land.
I paid for it. I better eat it.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. It's like that my wife and I, when we were down in the Caribbean and we're taking a catamaran over to St. John's, and we were leaving from St. Thomas, and it was prepaid, and we get down there at 8 o'clock, and I'm having all these cinnamon rolls and what I thought was orange juice. Now, it had some orange juice.
Mr. Kinahan, there's something you ought to know about the orange juice.
Yeah. I had like 4 of them. She takes a sip of this. I don't think these are just orange. I said, what do you mean? It's 8 o'clock in the morning. That's orange juice. Yeah, but they got something else in it. And why don't you get down from hanging up there where you're swinging around?
Swinging from the chandelier.
Yeah.
The catamaran now also has a PK rule.
Unbeknownst to me, I was totally loaded. And it wasn't even 9 o'clock on a Sunday.
It's almost an Elton John song.
Yeah. I didn't know mimosos. Is that what they call it? I'm so naive when it comes to that stuff. What did I know?
It's naive.
Right. I had no clue. So I tell these guys, go ahead, live it up on the break. Get yourself out of shape. Because, man, I'm nervous that they win too many games. Now, I did watch on Saturday, I think it was, Jacashonis. I watched the whole game. They played, Illinois played Michigan State. Illinois got out to the big lead. Michigan State came back.
I didn't
and won
watch it. Can he shoot off the dribble?
He looked good.
He thinks he can shoot off the dribble, but he can't shoot off the dribble.
Well, okay, then pass it to him.
That'd be a good idea.
Tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do.
He can do a lot. He's got a lot of size. He's really comfortable handling the ball. He's already closer to the NBA body than most of the guys they've drafted.
Absolutely, no question. He's got an NBA body right now, especially for a youngster.
Hendricks, Williams, they got a.
No, they're not even close. Right. They're puppies, and he's a full-grown great
And
Dane.
honestly, I'm picking on the one thing he can't do because he can do a lot of stuff.
What do you think? He's Kobe here?
He thinks he can shoot threes off the dribble. And in the games I've watched, 2 for 20. What?
Yeah, but why not do it now?
Oh, yeah. D. Will. Well, D. Will didn't shoot threes off the dribble. And Donovan Mitchell, that was something he added after he'd been here a couple of years. So he's trying it in games. It's not working.
Great.
I know. He's not going to be a finished product. If he were, he'd be number one, and it'd be.
Name me a finished product at when you're a teen.
Yeah.
They don't exist. Well, one, Magic.
There it is.
Yeah, he exists.
Well, he was actually.
No, he was a finished product.
He was he 20 or 21 when he won his rookie year? Won it all.
Yeah, but I'm talking right now. I'm not talking about down the line. I'm talking about right now.
Even Magic, when he won the 3 titles in 4 years, it was his freshman year in college, his 19-year-old year that he didn't win.
I'm concerned that this team wins too many games. They're going to have to make a concerted effort.
Okay, is that something Cooper Flagg just says because he's having a good time and he's loving it?
I don't know. And when it ends, that's over.
Yeah, and then cooler heads prevail.
I understand.
And then you make a business decision. You make the whole list of reasons.
But he has sponsorships now. So he's getting big-time money as we speak.
Right.
And it's not under the table.
And he can afford the insurance policy for the future earnings, just in case there's some horrible injury.
And maybe he wants to win it all. And the odds of any team winning it all are long. Because it's a one-and-done tournament, right? And so Duke may have the most talent, but somebody gets hot, somebody gets cold, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. But he did say that, and we are now later in the college season. College season essentially has 3 to 4 weeks to go. If you go longer, it would have 4 to 5 weeks, and that would be it. So it did... I was concerned a little bit when he said that from the Jazz perspective, combined with they're playing well. And New Orleans has made a concerted effort to suck. and Charlotte sucks, and the Wizards already suck.
Now, the Wizards, there's a concerted effort.
Right. Well, I think the other two, the injuries to Charlotte and then trading Ingram over to Toronto and Williamson, does he play 2 games in a row ever?
At the top, we always talk about separating the pretenders from the contenders. And at the bottom, the same thing has happened. There were teams that were really bad there for a while.
Right.
But
Portland's got it together.
Toronto, Brooklyn. For a while, they were in the mix.
Together from the tanking perspective.
Right. And now they're up there at their 17, 20, 23 wins. And you see this other group focused on the number 13.
Yeah.
Charlotte, Utah, New Orleans, all sitting on 13 victories. Who's going to have the 4th odds and risk dropping to 8th?
Right.
If things break the wrong way.
That would bother me.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone, the radio voice of the Utah Hockey Club. Mike Folta joins us next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone, and it is time to talk hockey with the radio voice of the Utah Hockey Club, Mike Folta. His appearance brought to you by Hercules First Federal Credit Union, growing stronger together. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we?
Good. You enjoying the downtime? No alarms, no airplanes. Holy cow! What are you doing with yourself?
I was down in PK's neck of the woods, down near St. George for a little bit. Went to Zion, and then stomped around Sedona and Arizona a little bit with my dad and my brother, and stayed out of trouble. And now we're back here in the Valley, ready to get back to work. The team practices again today, and so now we're back on the clock.
As far as the team goes, when you get down past this break and you can see the end in sight, it is time to make your push. We've been talking about the health. Expect them to be a little healthier to a degree, but you never know what's out there. Somebody could get hurt at any point, and you wonder if that will be the case as far as all that goes. But what is your sense that the team can make the push that it needs over, I think, what do they got, 26 left?
Yeah, something like that. And it's a little hard to tell right now. I think everybody was just fighting to get to this Four Nations break. And so that was kind of viewed as a major stopgap in the season, right? It's a pretty big cutoff. And then the remaining games after this break, it's almost like its own season. It's almost like a full sprint, basically, from here on out till the middle of April. And we got some big games coming up that will – I don't want to say they'll tell a lot, these specific games, but they'll be a good indicator of if this team is ready to go coming out of the break. We're in Los Angeles on Saturday to take on the Kings, one of the best teams in the Pacific Division. And then we've got a huge game against the Vancouver Canucks at home on Sunday. And that's Vancouver's a team that we're trying to chase down in the standings. They're a couple spots ahead of us, kind of jockeying for that middle or for that wild card spot. So 2 huge games coming up that I think will give us a pretty good indication of how this team used that break effectively or not effectively. And I mean, if you win both of those games, then you're feeling pretty darn good about yourself. If you lose both those games, then you're in some serious hurt moving forward.
The Kings are 7th. Vancouver is 8th. I mean, to your point, they could be Utah Hockey Club could be 3 or 4 points out of a playoff spot here, and they could also be 8 or 10 points out if things don't go well. So I know we talk about 26-game sprint, but it feels like better handle these 2 because that's a huge swing.
It's a huge swing. I mean, and you can make the argument that every weekend is like that, but rarely do you get a weekend like this against 2 teams in your division, but also against a team in Vancouver that you need to track down. And Vancouver's interesting because they've traded away JT Miller. He was one of their best players, and he had there was a personal beef between JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, 2 of their best players, and it was so unreconcilable that they had to trade one of them. Have you guys ever seen anything like that in pro sports? Where
yeah, Jazz fans can think of something like that. Don't worry about that. Yeah, think about that. Yes.
I mean, seriously, like a personal beef that's so drastic on a competing team, by the
Jess,
way.
Yeah, okay, all right, salt in the wound, yeah. It's Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, yeah.
It's unfathomable. Hey, by the way, how about the Four Nations game, U.S.-Canada, on Saturday night in Montreal, stacked up against the NBA All-Star game. You've got the Tkachuk brothers fighting seconds apart in U.S.-Canada at Bell Center, and then over in the NBA All-Star game, no offense to the association, but you've got like Team Shaq and Team Kenny playing on a blue floor. It was just a little different what each league is doing with their respective All-Star break.
As far as the U.S. and Canada, all I got to say is FAFO Canada.
That was I mean, have you guys ever seen, like, hopefully you were watching that live or you got to see the highlights, because that was one of the best starts to a game I think I've ever witnessed. And in Montreal, like, that's a sacred town for hockey. And the Bell Center is a magical place. And you've got two brothers fighting right off the jump. And then JT Miller, the Canucks guy I mentioned, he jumps in for the third fight in 9 seconds. And then USA wins. And then we've got a matchup coming up on Thursday. I mean, like, what? The NHL got this right. They got it absolutely right with the Four Nations Faceoff. And it's hard to imagine the NHL like going back to an all-star game type format when you could pit these nations against each other.
Yeah, now those were fights. What Kesselring did last time out, I think it was, that was a do-say-do. That was not a fight. If you're going to fight, fight. Don't just hug guys on skates. I don't need to see that.
Hey, I'll defend my boy Kesselring here. He was standing up for himself, and you got to be careful. And those do-si-do matches can turn into a broken nose pretty quick.
Yeah, you think you're do-si-doing, and the other guy thinks you're fighting, and uh-oh, trouble.
I think if you go back and watch the third fight between U.S. and Canada, JT Miller throws, and he was taking on a guy a lot bigger than him, but he throws an uppercut so hard it actually comes around and hits him back in the helmet. Like he punched himself in the face. That's how hard these guys are fighting.
How many so you see these fights, what percentage of them, just ballpark it for us, are because of stuff that's happened before? What percentage is because of in the minute? And I hear a lot of times people say, well, yeah, once it's over, and, guys can go out for, a beer or lunch or whatever, play golf later on. Really? Or does stuff really stick? And, 2 years later, like in baseball, and you know this growing up, like guys are throwing each other in the second inning, or pitchers throwing a guy in the second inning. That's because of something that happened last month, and they just haven't seen each other since last month.
So from what we've heard from Brady and Matthew Tkachuk, the two Bash brothers who started the party on Saturday, it sounded like they knew they were going to fight. Like they knew they were going to fight somebody to start that game. And they were playing on the same line, obviously. So they would have a chance to kind of go back to back. They were going to try and, fire up the boys a little bit. And from what Brady Tkachuk said, I think Matthew, once he saw the starting lineups, which is usually like maybe 20 minutes before the game, he knew he was going to go with Brandon Hagel, who he ended up fighting. Matthew plays for the Florida Panthers. Hagel plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So they've had some battles in the NHL in that Florida rivalry. And then, when it came to Brady Tkachuk, he knew he was going to fight, and he knew that Sam Bennett, his combatant, was not going to say no. So there was a certain level of a premeditated nature to it, where I think the Tkachuk brothers knew they were going to go somebody, but they just didn't know exactly who until a few minutes before the game. I think for the most part, it sounds like it was pretty organic. And then the JT Miller fight was all organic. That was just kind of in the course of play, and Miller had enough, and he didn't want to be left out of the action, and so he grabbed a 6'4" Canadian and started ripping the bark off him.
Well, what do they do then? This has been a smash hit, and we'll see what happens. I expect that it'll be even more of a smashier hit, I guess you could say, on the final, as far as going forward in subsequent years.
Yeah, well, we've got the Olympics coming up next year as well, and so that's going to be a supercharged event. Now, in the Olympics, you can't fight, otherwise you get kicked out. So you're playing under IIHF rules. That's like the international hockey governing body rules. So it's a little different for an IIHF event with the fighting and things like that. But like I said, it's hard to imagine the NHL going back to like an all-star game or anything. The one thing that I think needs to be addressed is just the injuries. Like we've seen a couple guys go down who have either been hurt in this tournament or they were hurt before the tournament, so they couldn't participate in it. There have been people wanting this tournament to be played in September before the start of the season, but then you're going up against football, and the American markets obviously don't want to do that. I mean, the timing of the Four Nations tournament was perfect because it's the first weekend after the Super Bowl, so it's the first weekend with no football, basically.
Right.
And the only thing it was going up against was the NBA All-Star Game, which, again, was, Team Shaq and Team Kenny or like the Rising Stars or something like that. So you picked a pretty good weekend to put this product on display. But like we've seen Charlie McAvoy for Team USA, really good defenseman. He got injured, and so he's out for the rest of the tournament. And it sounds like I don't know if there's a chance he misses games with the Bruins or not, but that's always a possibility when you have these international tournaments in the middle of the season. But I mean, you look at an all-star game and guys are just kind of, going through the motions out there. It's not physical at all. That's not been the case here. I mean, you have superstars on the ice in USA and Canada and Sweden and Finland who are killing each other on the ice. At one point, it showed a stat for McAvoy. He had 4 hits in the game. This is like 5 minutes into the first period. He had 4 hits in the game. 2 were on Connor McDavid and 2 were on Sidney Crosby. So he was targeting the best players in the world on Team Canada. And that's the kind of event we have, especially when you get U.S. and Canada playing against each other. These teams do not like each other on the international stage. And you add in the fact that at the Bell Center in Montreal on Saturday night they're booing the U.S. national anthem. I think it adds a little extra juice.
I'll never forgive them for that.
Well, USA didn't forgive them either.
No, we didn't.
So it looks like the plan going forward is Olympics in 26 and 30, yeah. The World Cup in 38 and 28 in between. Is that World Cup going to happen in the middle of the NHL season also? I can see the Four Nations event, but the World Cup sounds bigger, and it sounds like it would take more time and a longer break. And, I mean, the league's done the Olympics, but it doesn't feel like they've always embraced it. I mean, they did it 5 times in a row, but they didn't always love the break. That's been a little bit of a sticking point, even though they did it multiple times.
Yeah, and one thing that they really don't want to do, the league and the Players Association, is they don't want to make the season any longer than it is. Like this Four Nations break has been awesome, but they've really had to condense the rest of the schedule. And so when you're talking about like these international tournaments, one of the issues becomes travel and how do we play these games in Europe? How do we expand the game globally? Because we can do it in North America easy enough, but eventually if you're only doing it in Canada and the U.S., it's not fair to, half the hockey world, Sweden, Finland. Hopefully one day Russia can join because they have some of the best players in the world as well. But that becomes a big part of the issue is travel. If you're doing it in season, how do you get guys over to Europe if you are going to play it in Europe, or part of it in Europe at least, and then get them back to the U.S. in a reasonable time for their NHL schedule. So they've done the World Cup of Hockey before, but there's a lot of logistics in terms of, is it going to be before the season? Is it going to be during the season? And all that stuff. But what we have learned from Four Nations is that we need to get back to this international play in some manner because it is way better than any NHL All-Star event that the league could put on.
You've done a lot of different sports in your broadcasting career. You're still young, but you've done a bunch. Which team do people root for as far as baseball in Indiana?
That's a great question. The most populous fan base, so I grew up in central Indiana, just outside of Indianapolis. The most populous fan base is that of the Chicago Cubs, definitely. And especially after 2016, you saw the W flags, they came out of the woodworks like roaches. But I would say the most passionate and the most educated fan base is that of the Cincinnati Reds, actually. I think those are the best fans in terms of they know the team, they know their sport. A lot of the Cubs fans are just, bandwagon fair weather fans. They like the Cubs because they were always on TV. I was a St. Louis Cardinals fan growing up. I was a big Yadier Molina fan. So I was a Cardinals fan, and also because some of my friends were Reds fans, and I wanted to, go after them a little bit. But I grew up a Redbirds fan. I haven't paid a ton of attention recently. Summertime was kind of my time off. Turn my sports brain off a little bit.
Okay, so that makes sense as why you just dissed the Cubs then, because the Redbirds and the Cubs have a thing. And the reason why I bring it up, because on this date in 1998, Harry Carey passed, the legend.
Oh. Now, I can appreciate a good Harry Carey call. And
I'm hoping you would do one in his voice for us. That's the whole point of this.
Holy cow! Like one of those?
Yes, exactly.
Well, a Harry Carey call involves like a holy cow. It could be, it might be, probably mispronouncing a name, right?
Yeah, there you go. Calling Mariano Duncan, calling him Duncan Mariano so he can Italianize him. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't make broadcasters like Harry Carey anymore. Of course, they don't let us drink in the booth either. But
that's a problem.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe we'll get that changed. Probably not. But
well, Mike,
good.
we appreciate a few minutes as always, and we will hear you back on the air this weekend. Big games coming up with the Kings and the Canucks that'll set the tone for the stretch run.
Yeah, guys, enjoy those games and enjoy the U.S.-Canada on Thursday night. It's going to be a blast.
All right. Hey, thanks for the time, Mike. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. See you guys. Bye.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Everything you missed in this show. Tons of college hoops. Hope even for the Utes. We'll get to that coming up. Stay with us.
For all of you less motivated listeners, it's time for your 9 o'clock. Where the heck have you been headlines?
Where you at?
With DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Call Trajan Wealth today. Your local, trusted financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. Trajan Wealth bringing you the Slacker headlines here at 9:32 as we get you up to speed on everything you missed in this show. This weekend, as we just had Mike Folta on, radio voice of the Utah Hockey Club, and we had Steve Cleveland on, former BYU coach, to talk college hoops. This weekend, if you're looking for competition, PK, none in the NBA, a little bit in hockey with the Four Nations tournament, and then college hoops is heating up. So for all of the local teams, this is an important weekend. Disappointing loss for the Aggies, who came close to winning in the pit but didn't pull it off. And BYU plays Kansas tonight. The Utah schools can sweep the Kansas schools. They're 3-0, with the Utes winning twice and BYU winning once so far. This is a big game for BYU, and that was a great weekend for the Utes.
Well, I would just absolutely love to see BYU beat Kansas. And then we can look at them and say, hey, you're not in Kansas anymore, guys.
Nice.
Big game. Yeah, this is a big time of year. Every game is big, unless you've absolutely sewn up an NCAA berth, which I can't say for any of the teams here in the state.
But even then, Auburn and Alabama played, and that was a big deal.
It's a big game, but that's the curse of college basketball.
When you're
it's
that
a meaningless
good.
Game.
Right. It's fun to play your rival and know you're both really good and you want to win.
Right.
But you also are like, what are these two teams are going to be 1 or 2 seeds?
And who 100%. Cares if you're a 1 or a 2?
Right,
What difference does it
make?
And
100% they're going to be 1 or 2 seeds.
So it's a big game, but it's not a big game. In terms of ramifications, it's not a big game. But when you're fighting for bids, those become huge. Alabama and Auburn,
I don't know.
Not
I feel
really.
like BYU and Kansas are fighting for bids. I feel
I'm talking
like
about the 3 teams in the States. I believe they are. I mean,
don't you think they're
Aggies,
both
Utes, and Cougs? Fighting for bids.
BYU and Kansas, if I had to put NCAA tournament odds, they're 70-80% they're going to make it.
It can slip away, man.
It can. Okay. That's not 100.
Let me ask you this.
But don't
and
you
I
think...
hate saying let me ask you this. Just ask it. It drives me nuts, and I just committed one of my
Let me answer this.
Yeah, nobody ever says that. You feel like there's a 70% chance, so you feel really good.
I feel pretty good about it, yeah.
I'm going to tell you that your next plane trip
has a 70 or 80%. You're like, well, I think I'll drive.
Right.
That's the answer to that.
Right, exactly.
I think it's more likely than not the Cougars get in. But to your point, they could absolutely drop a home game to Kansas. You go on the road. There really aren't easy road wins, right? I mean, you can get them, and teams do. It could slip away. It absolutely could slip away. They're 17-8. And once you start
fighting for a
once
bid.
you start getting in that 11, 12, 13 loss category, you start like, I mean, teams get in out of leagues like the Big 12. That's where we have to adjust our thinking, right? Mountain West teams didn't get in with 11 or 12 losses, nor will they this year.
No, not at all.
But in the Big 12, that 10, 11, 12, now that it's 68,
but tonight's
you can't
right
rule
off
it
the
out.
bat. It's a toss-up.
The game. Yeah, I can see why you're saying that. I would say it's not a total toss-up, but I'd go 60-40 BYU.
I think it is.
Kansas isn't good on the road. BYU is very good at home. The home court's so important in college basketball. You've said it.
Shooting is fickle.
And that's why it's 60-40 and no better than that.
What pure shooter do they have on that team?
I know. I hear you.
Nell? But he doesn't come up big in these games. He scores maybe 1 or 2 3-pointers.
Right. But because BYU is 12-2 at home and because Kansas is 3-6 on the road, I'm going to lean BYU.
Sure, but I get it. But leaning is not
a guarantee.
Not slapping your hand on the desk.
I'm neither driving a Wendover and putting it all on the blue. No, well, I guess they both wear blue, so that doesn't make any sense. I'm not pulling out my phone and putting anything on this. I mean, yeah, anything could happen. But I do feel like BYU has the advantage. They got the edge. Both teams are 17-8. Both teams are 8-6.
No, I hope you're right.
I think if you're BYU, you'd probably prefer that Kansas has beaten Utah and not come in with a little bit of an edge. You know, sometimes trying to bounce back from a loss when you're a program that expects to win, that can be a little extra.
I don't know that matters.
Is Kansas used to play in elevation?
Utah just beat Kansas State, and they came off a loss.
K-State not as good as Kansas.
Kansas isn't as good as Kansas. That's the most important thing.
That is true. And watching them, it was really apparent. Like they've had teams that had game changers, elite athletes you couldn't match up with, tons of confidence. You know, we've all watched Kansas teams where they're coming up court and they're like, we're going to score. And then we're going to go down and stop you. Yeah.
And the best player's a senior? Well, that just screams you're not good enough.
Well, unless you're loaded with 6 of those guys. But I get your point. They're 17-8. They're vulnerable. I mean,
they're good. They're okay.
Yeah, 17-8 is a good record, but we're used to seeing Kansas at 20-5 or 21-4.
Yeah.
And those extra L's, like the one they had at the Huntsman Center, are the ones that suggest, all right, you've been an A+ program for so long. When you're a B+, A-,
right,
it's
and
noticeable.
then if they go down early, they did last year. Then you start wondering, okay, are you running out of steam here?
And we don't follow it close enough, and maybe a little bit of it is scheduling, but they haven't been playing.
Yeah, but they've been going
great.
A lot of one-and-dones, and that's a slippery slope. It can be.
Yeah.
It works. You need one. You go after those guys because they're really, really good, and BYU's going down that road. But you've got to have other dudes who can make up for what the one-and-dones don't particularly have in those moments. And I don't know that they have it.
Yeah, Kansas 3-4 in their last 7 games.
Grady Dick is not walking through that door.
Boom! There it is. But they're 3-4, and at the same time, they beat 8th-ranked Iowa State in that stretch.
They're
so
dangerous.
you never really know.
They're dangerous.
You never really know.
I heard you first time.
I'm going to say one more. You never really. So we talked about that game with Steve Cleveland. We talked about the Utes reviving their NCAA tournament hopes with a pair of home wins over Kansas and Kansas State. There's much more work to be done.
They needed juice, and they got it.
They're now going to need to win on the road, and they're 1-6 on the road this year.
Right, but the good thing is they need to win on the road, whereas if they would have lost both those games,
it wouldn't have mattered. Right.
They'd be playing out the string.
Yep.
And now they're not.
So
it's a long shot, but it's a shot. It's a much better shot today
than it was on Thursday.
Yeah. And so that's what's cool about it. They've got themselves to have an opportunity, and maybe they've got something. They've got an opportunity to show us that they've got something.
So win at UCF Saturday afternoon, and then we'll worry about the rest of it.
They're roaring into Tucson with all sorts of momentum.
Yep.
And I will root my butt off for them
for
on that
them
game.
to win that game. A win at UCF gets them back to 500 in the league at 8-8.
Then you're in the ballpark.
Yep.
At least you're in the ballpark.
Right.
You're not down in the minor league field. You're at the major league, which reminds me, we're just a little more than 48 hours away from spring training being on TV Thursday, 1 o'clock.
Yay!
Cubs and Dodgers. Don't bother me.
They'll get huge ratings.
Because they play in Japan, so they're starting to skosh earlier.
Yep.
And now, this past Sunday is the last Sunday that we won't have MLB until November.
So we're now at the point where there's so there's one Sunday that doesn't have baseball or football. 2 if you count the week before the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
I'm fired up, man.
The seasons have totally run
college
together.
Baseball kicked off Friday. Devils are 4-0. Sweeping Ohio State. Beating Austin Peay. Yeah. I'm all over it, man. This ESPN Plus, I was glued to the television.
ESPN Plus is your go-to for college baseball. There is so much college baseball.
I had 2 of my 3 institutions of higher learning that I could watch on Friday.
Right, let's do something.
Grand Canyon was playing Friday.
Let's do something.
Lost to Vanderbilt.
Let's do something new here. Oh, really? Threw themselves up against the beast, huh?
Well, it's they call it Desert Classic.
Yeah.
They bring in teams.
Use the spring training facilities, I assume?
I think they were using Grand Canyon has their own.
Oh, okay. I saw a little bit of that. Did you you saw the stuff about Northern Arizona is going to be the Astro Jacks for one basketball game to celebrate their link with all the work they do, I guess, with NASA and space. Pluto was discovered there. It's dark skies there. Have you seen those jerseys? You like that?
No.
Oh, yeah? Here you go.
No, I've seen them. I've already seen them.
You said no.
No, you said, do I like it?
Oh, okay. That was for like them. I've seen them. No, you don't like it. Stay with the Lumberjacks.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on. Don't be something you're not.
One game.
We're the Jacks.
You still get to be the Jacks. They didn't mess with that. They didn't make them the Northern Arizona Astros. Which probably would have gotten a cease and desist letter from some lawyer for the Houston Astros.
When I hear the word Astro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think of astronauts.
Astrodome, Astroterm, astronaut. Yeah.
I think of turf. AstroTurf. It's not called that.
No, field turf, which is way better than AstroTurf.
Yeah. It's
AstroTurf was just outdoor carpeting laid down over concrete.
Falling down on that. Yeah.
I was stunned when they ripped it out of Rice Eccles Stadium, and I had to go up and do a story on it. I guess it was ripped out of Rice Stadium. You were stunned? Oh yeah, it was literally blacktop right underneath.
That was the second time you went up there, because that one other time you went up for soccer. Remember?
I do.
And you made that discovery?
I did.
Jay Scott was talking about the manifesto last week.
Nice.
And you said, if you don't get on board, you'll be fired. In your manifesto, in which you pledged allegiance to soccer, when you didn't think I was listening, but I was listening at the airport on the phone.
Cool.
And you were insulting me. And he says that,
I know. I think that's a specific.
If you didn't catch the wave, you'd be out.
I think that's a specific story about one person who didn't catch the wave and get fired. I think he tweaked it a little bit.
So he's misleading?
I'll have to talk to him. I guess so, yeah. It's a game of telephone now. Me trying to remember what I said 20 years ago.
Oh, he remembered it vividly. I mean, I was almost like the Pledge of Allegiance. He recited it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
On your case, soccer.
Of the United States, of the National Hockey League.
CONCACAF.
CONCACAF. What is that, Abacab? A little Genesis there?
That's where it all began.
That is nice. Just free association Tuesday. Hey, you want to give away some more Jazz tickets? What are you thinking, Christian? Should do it right now?
Let's do it.
All right. 801-575-ZONE wins a pair of tickets to see the Jazz and the Thunder Friday night, Delta Center. Caller 12, 801-575-ZONE wins a pair of tickets to see the Jazz and the Thunder at the Delta Center. Caller 12, 801-575-ZONE. Right now. Do it. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Your feedback is next.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
So on a weekend where the Pro Bowl rolls up, we get the most amazing news dropped in our lap. Is this the biggest trade you've ever witnessed, like where we're all scratching our heads going, holy cow?
There have been big trades over the years, but never a player like this in his prime for another player that's an all-star, all-NBA, all-NBA defensive player of the year type level like this, out of nowhere with nobody knowing it was going to happen. This came out of nowhere. Nobody saw this coming.
Luka, poor guy, didn't see it coming. Luka's dad is talking about how he's crying. My goodness, he wasn't laying off the cheeseburgers. They start to do this thing where the character assassination after he leaves too, they go, well, yeah, he's fat. Like, we couldn't keep him in condition. You're going to see Luka Doncic with a freaking six-pack next year and middle fingers blazing.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. And now, enough of us. It's time to hear from you. From all your texts, tweets, and posts. This is the best feedback of the day.
Ooh, I was there. That's the best game of my life.
With DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon. And none other than JJ and Alex are the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week. And it's sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals.
DJ and PK, the question of the morning, generated a lot of response. How much are you into the Four Nations Tournament? U.S., Canada, Thursday night, 6 o'clock for the title. Derek's into it. So much fun to watch. Put on the national anthem, get the patriotism going, PK, and you can get people fired up regardless of the sport.
Oh, I think around here, it's also a little bit of one-upsmanship on the Jazz.
Oh, and the NBA? Absolutely.
Yeah.
The NBA's out there with the multicolored court and gimmicky teams and trying to create some interest in something that lost its juice 10 or 15 years ago. 11-2 and highly ranked at True Blue BYU 1984. It's been really fun to watch. The NBA and NFL need to revamp their All-Star games because they're unwatchable. Well, the NFL actually isn't even playing theirs anymore.
You can't.
Too much contact, threat of injury, too much money at stake.
Yeah, it's too dangerous of a sport. Come on. Basketball, I think there's little excuse. I mean, they have the threat of injury, but the guys play in the summer and go harder than what they do here. They're like you. They went up to Rice Eccles and made a conscious decision, and they've made a conscious decision that they don't want to do it. So I'm out.
Enough said, McGreevy. I watched every game, but I always watched the NHL All-Star games as well. With that being said, this was the first time since I was a kid that I didn't watch the NBA All-Star Saturday night, and I barely watched about 15 minutes of the actual game itself.
Well, it wasn't an actual game, so you don't even know what you were watching. It was multiples, so you're not even sure of the format. I saw one. Somebody said that Adam Silver is, what is he? He's hooked on tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
He wants an in-season tournament. He wants a play-in tournament. Now he's trying to create a tournament here in this All-Star.
Trying to create winners and losers in immediacy because otherwise the players are checking out. And honestly, so are some of the GMs and owners.
And honestly, the players are cashing checks.
Yes, they are. So are the GMs and owners.
So nothing really resonates. I know that people who are paid by the NBA want to go, the NBA in-season tournament is working. On a moderate, at best scale, I agree with them, but it has zero staying power.
Right.
I couldn't even tell you who won it.
I was thinking that while you were talking. I was thinking, did the Thunder win it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you who played. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't watch it, but I'm saying it has no staying power. A month later, nobody talks about it. Nobody remembers it. It doesn't mean anything. It's good for what, and I appreciate trying new stuff. Because unless you try stuff, how do you know what's going to work or doesn't work? So I've got zero problem with them trying to recreate this and make it better. It's just it's not working. But don't stop.
Milwaukee beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in the final.
I couldn't have told you
There
that.
it is. I had to look it up.
Yeah.
Enough said, McGreevy. The NBA's lost me. I've gone full NHL hockey over the last 5 years, more and more. Now that we have our own team, it's been 100 hockey in our house.
As for me in my house, we watch the NHL. Yeah, I'm not there yet. I've never let the NBA go. To an extent, drag through the regular season, but I haven't let it go. I don't think I'll ever let it go.
Well, we might not be dragging through the regular season if the Jazz weren't in full rebuild tankathon mode.
I still think to an extent.
To an extent, I get it.
But see, I'm beyond it. The tank doesn't bother me anymore.
Right, but you also don't feel the need to watch every game.
Oh, I do.
Every minute of every game.
No, I disagree.
You have a 30-point game in the third quarter. You haven't said, okay.
I don't think we get many of those anymore. I mean, they had one with the Lakers, but that was Luka, so I'm watching there.
Yeah.
No, I'm now, of the tank, I'm more excited about the product
because of
now.
Collier. Because of Collier and Kessler. Right. The young guys are starting to get you now.
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier in the show. Is this a 30? You went with 37. That surprised me. I went with 30-win team. They're actually trying to win. A 30-win team that should add more good young players, right? They're going to have 2 more draft picks in the first round. I don't know what they're going to do with all the second-round picks. That'll be intriguing when we get there. They're trading for somebody or something.
For a losing team, I have reasons to watch that I'm excited about now. I'm on the Collier train, and once I get on somebody's train, I root for them like my life depended on it. It becomes personal.
It does. That's my guy.
Right.
You're like a jockey, and you're going to get your horse to the wire to win the Derby.
I want to see this dude flourish. Yeah, I'm fired up for him. And the other guys, Kessler had 6 blocks the other night. They haven't had that kind of performance, well, obviously since Gobert left.
His third year has been the breakout year.
It really has.
We talked to him about that, and man, the look in his eyes, as soon as he started in on that, his look in his eyes, oh, you guys too, huh? I'm sure he talked to an assistant coach. I'm sure he talked to a head coach. I'm sure he talked to a GM. And on down the line. He'd heard it more than once.
Well, when Ainge makes his biannual appearance and we actually hear his voice again.
Yeah, it could be AI. You don't know.
Is he going to, he basically trashed him after the rookie year where I did it against nobodies.
Yeah.
Well, not this year. I'm excited for the end of the season when Ainge talks about it because I want to hear what Ainge has to say because I think he's marvelous at his job. And I want to hear what he has to say individually about, at that point, the third season will be over. And where he sees Kessler now and what he thinks he can be to the roster when the team is trying to win more going forward.
I wonder how much he believed what he said then and how much he was doing it as motivation.
Okay, but still now, what's he going to? He can't downgrade him. Is this guy a big-time player? He's not a 25-point a game. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being a big-time player in the role that you need him to do. Because Gobert, when they did it, they didn't get where they wanted to go, but they still had a pretty good team.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Look at Ben leaning against the wall, ready to bring 2 hours of genius radio next. We're going to take a break. Ben will come sprinting in here and take over next on The Zone. Stay with us.